Okay, what in the fuck?
Okay. Sorry. Salutations, ladies and Doom. Welcome to Podcast of Storm, or Social Outcast. Praise Rails on it's convenient talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm your host, I'm Wannabe, the brainstorm of pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
Can't complain. It was a fairly uneventful day, but sometimes that's nice.
My week was fine. Went on a walk yesterday. Went to some nice places. Went to an art museum. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some nice like chili dogs with like onions and stuff. They're really good. Been a while since I've like actually gone out and just done stuff. Maybe I'm just super tired from work and stuff. I mean, it's also just been really cold out and
yeah.
So because Dalton likes being a depressive little shit, as always. Pretty much all those are his, along with one trailer.
I'm sorry. My stupidity detector goes ding when there's stuff, and it went ding several times.
It's one of the main reasons I have you on this show.
Just doing my job.
Okay. This is from Salon.com. What's Elon Musk's war on federal workers owes to Gamergate, written by Amanda Marcotte, published February 24th, 2025.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I'm not gonna say that she's wrong here, but she means it in a completely different context than the one in which it's actually true. Because she sees Gamergate as some kind of demonic harassment campaign, when in actuality, Gamergate was the vanguard of the opposition to what used to be referred to as social justice and is now referred to as quote-unquote woke. Which is to say, the neo-Hegelian bullshit that is identitarian academia. And long story short, the way in which it's true is that Gamergate were the good guys back then, and Elon is at least on the side of the good guys at the moment. Because he is tired of all this HR clicky PR nonsense and wants to take a bureaucratic chainsaw to it, which is based and correct to do.
I also want to preference this that I am too young to really know much about Gamergate or really be a part of it. Because when that was happening, I was still in. I was just leaving middle school and getting into high school.
Yeah, Gamergate started in 2013, which is when I graduated, which meant it would have been like when you got into high school, just barely.
Yeah,
And
I
even
started
I
high
was
school.
and even I was kind of a latecomer to it because at that time in my life I was having severe anxiety disorder issues.
Also, I just don't. To be fully honest, I don't care about Elon Musk. Legitimately, I don't care much about politics overall. I find most of it to be annoying and just a waste of time.
Un- Unfortunately, just because you don't care about politics doesn't mean that politics doesn't care about you, as evidenced by the fact that every force of quote-unquote social justice under the sun keeps trying to appropriate all of the geeky IPs that we all love so much. And it's kind of ridiculous that of all the people who could have shown up to in the metaphorical last alliance of men and elves to oppose the eldritch abomination that was social justice and is now currently woke, it was geeks that drew their line in the sand. Academia fucking opened wide when social justice said so. Government and politics fucking was puppeteered by social justice from basically minute one. Even the like intellectual sphere of like what used to be like four horsemen of new atheism got completely ass fucked by social justice. They didn't start getting pushback until they started coming for the metaphorical bread and circuses that are geek IPs. It is kind of ironic to me that of all the people who could have meaningfully opposed social justice, it was geeks like us that were the only ones willing to say this far no further you shall not pass, etc.
Hey Dranko, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Oh, and don't, unless you know he wouldn't like it, waste time. Did you send Brainstorm the thing?
Which thing? Oh, right. The AMV you sent me. I don't know if he would like that style of music, and I don't know if it portrays the character in a way that he would like. That's why I held back on sending it to him. But we shall see. He gave me a thing to send to you, but I watched it and I didn't know if you would like it, so I held back from doing so. In any case, on with the article because we have like 6 of these to do and then trailers. So, but
No,
anyway.
we have 1, 2, 3. We just have 4.
Okay, but either way, it's a more packed. It's a more packed week than we are used to, so we should vamoose relatively expediently.
Whose fault is that?
There was a lot of stuff that was worth covering this week. I don't know what to tell you. My stupidity detector went ding a lot, and then I saw
the Elon thing was from February.
Yes, which is part of the reason it's a slightly more stacked week than it otherwise probably would be. But in any case, on we move.
Subheader long ago troll tantrum from video game was upset by women kicked off the cultural wars for the stupid era.
It's not women, it's intersectional feminism that kicked off the anti-social justice movement, which got its sort of which got its seed in Gamergate, yes, and then was replicated across multiple vectors of IP because social justice tried the same strategy over and over again to basically co-opt geekdom as a victimhood identity. And the geeks told them in relatively certain terms to GTFO quite vigorously. But women were never the issue. In fact, especially back in the day, because Gamergate was largely a center-left movement, there were a fuck ton of people of various quote-unquote diverse backgrounds who were part of Gamergate. And they didn't particularly like being used as human shields. There were gay people that supported Gamergate. There were black people that supported Gamergate. There were women who supported Gamergate, both straight and gay and everywhere in between. There were disabled people that supported Gamergate, and there were a bunch of us that were some crystallization of all of the above. Hi. But yeah, in fact, there's probably a higher percentage of diverse people, quote unquote, in the original Gamergate zeitgeist than there were on the social justice side of said zeitgeist, which is kind of impressive when you consider that Gamergate's whole premise was identitarianism doesn't matter, and therefore demographic doesn't matter. All the while, social justice was going out of its way to find people of various backgrounds, and they still didn't manage to have more of people of those various backgrounds than us at any given time back in the day. But moving forward.
One of the most unnerving aspects of billionaire Elon Musk's illegal rampage through the federal government is how stupid it is. To be sure, the more important issue is that it's reckless and evil. Under the false auspices of efficiency, he's slashing workers at random and targeting entire departments that happen to have the power to hold his businesses accountable for law breaking.
Okay. First, Elon Musk doing what he does is not illegal because he was hired to do it by the current sitting president, who won both the popular and electoral college victories and considerable gains in the Senate and House as well. Moreover, Trump actually ran on creating Doge, and specifically on putting Elon Musk in charge of it, and Elon Musk helped Trump campaign. So it is completely irrational to say that the people who voted for Trump didn't know that Doge was going to be a thing. It was, in fact, one of the primary things that Trump ran on, and consequently, we can conclude that if anybody found Elon Musk or Doge objectionable, it didn't affect the voting totals enough to make a meaningful difference. And I would argue that Elon being Elon and creating Doge and taking the metaphorical bureaucratic chainsaw to the bloated normative institutions TM is the reason why a lot of people did vote for Trump. Far from being a bug, watch me while I insinuate that it was a feature. And therefore, your entire zeitgeist, or your entire framework with regards to this, is completely fucked. Also, there is nothing evil about shrinking the bureaucratic size of the government. But then again, I shouldn't have to explain that to an anti-fascist. Because an anti-fascist should know that fascism, broadly, by Giovanni Gentile's definition, is everything within the state, nothing outside of the state, and nothing against the state. Meanwhile, you have Elon currently being the avatar of the opposite of that. He isn't a part of the administration, technically. He was just hired by the administration. He is restricting the reach and scope of bureaucratic normative institutions, TM, and he is doing so with the promise of allowing people to have more freedom outside of the government. So, yeah, no, Elon's 0 for 3 on the fascistometer. He wants things that are outside of the state, against the state, and he wants a smaller and more streamlined and efficient state. So that's pretty much a 0 for 3 on the fascistometer, my dear sweet woman, you. Moving on.
But the sadism is accompanied by a trollish glee that reads far more like a 13-year-old boy's failed attempts at humor than what would expect from a 53-year-old businessman and father of 12. The name of the initiative is Department of Government Efficiency, mostly so it can be abbreviated to Doge, the silly meme from 12 years ago, into Musk's favorite cryptocurrency. He tweets about Doge, stop grasping upon self-serving lies and conspiracy theories with a credulity so all-encompassing it cannot help but be willful.
The sadism and trollish glee, as you put it, is what normal people refer to as irreverence in the face of pompous moralistic authority. And that is always, or almost always, when applied to human beings. Again, I will specify when applied to human beings specifically, because some people or some entities in authority, I should say, deserve to be there by dint of merit, and that's how they got there in the first place. But where human beings are concerned, there are very, very, very few cases where irreverence in the face of overbearing moralistic authority is not, by definition, a good thing. And you would know that if you were the kind of person who was still on the side of irreverence in the face of authority, rather than the authority that needs to be dethroned and the moralist who needs to be told to knock off all the pearl clutching. This is the difference. In the 90s, the left-wing party was the party of freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of association, and irreverence in the face of authority, because the authority in question back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s was a moralistic, authoritarian, borderline theocratic one that got addicted to capital F, capital V family values, and thought that there was no other way you could be in favor of family values with a lowercase f and a lowercase v without being in favor of the capital F and capital V version. As a result of this, the left won the previous culture war, because they were the ones in favor of populism, libertarianism, freedom of expression, etc. But now, the zeitgeist has altered such that a bunch of people who claimed they were in favor of freedom of expression and irreverence in the face of a moralistic authority became a moralistic authority who went out of its way to stymie freedom of expression. And so now, the party that's popular with the populist masses is a right-wing libertarian one. See, what you appear to think happened was we went from beating right-wing authoritarians back to right-wing authoritarians. What actually happened is the zeitgeist flipped over on the perpendicular. So instead of going up and to the right, it went down and to the right, primarily because the left wing went up on the authoritarianism axis. I'm using the political compass graph as a metric here. The way this used to work is you had the right wing in the top right corner, and you had the left wing in the bottom left corner. But the left wing went up, and so the zeitgeist went down in the perpendicular. So we went from left wing being in the bottom left corner and right wing being in the top right corner to primarily the left being in the top left corner and the right being in the bottom right corner. This is why I always hyperfixate on the fact that whatever else you may think about the axis of right versus left, the important vector is, was, and always has been the vertical one. And I will maintain this until my dying day. Nothing of value, nothing of worth, and in fact, nothing of non-destruction has ever come from those top two positions. Also, the last three squares on the bottom of the lower positions are also out of bounds as far as I'm concerned, because anarchy also doesn't typically do anything but destroy shit. But within the parameters of the bottom left and bottom right, excluding the last three notches or so in those squares, good things will happen as long as somebody somewhere is pushing for the lower half of that spectrum, excluding, again, those last three bottom squares that symbolize anarchy. But yeah, as long as they're libertarian and not anarchistic, and also have a populist bent, which is important to prevent the libertarianism from purity spiraling out of control, to anarchy. As long as someone somewhere is in the bottom half of that spectrum and avoiding the bottom three squares that symbolize anarchy, good things will happen no matter who or which side of the square they happen to be on. But nothing, or as good as almost nothing, nothing of worth has ever come from the top half. Ever. Moving on.
So, does this under the profile names like Harry Bowles, and we're all a little dumber for reading that? That's true.
No. What we are is faced with people being irreverent to your moralistic authoritarian order. You don't think that should be possible because you still think you're on the lower half of the left-wing spectrum, but you're not. The left went up vertically in the political compass, broadly speaking, and the right went down, generally speaking. There are still authoritarian voices on the right, like your Matt Walsh's saying anime is satanic, or your Gavin McInnes's saying build the table, bigots, etc. But those people, at least for now, are being BTFO'd by their own audience bases like a ton of fucking bricks every time they go that route. And that is a good sign for the future, and I hope that continues for as long as it possibly can continue for. So generally, what happened is you don't see anything your opposition does in a libertarian or populist vector, and you are also pathologically incapable of seeing anything your own side does as authoritarian. And that is exactly why you are literally pearl clutching and going, won't somebody please think of the academics and the bureaucrats when you're faced with irreverence that you don't like? Because you don't think that irreverence you don't like should be possible, and therefore you have to find a way of pretzelizing it in your brain as Elon being somehow authoritarian, when in fact all he's doing is mocking you to your face. Which is exactly what the left used to do to the capital F, capital V Family Values Brigade. And that was a good thing. We should continue doing that as well. But we should also be as irreverent as possible in the face of the neo-Hegelian nightmare birthed from academia, broadly called social justice, or critical theory, or wokeness. Moving on.
Right, okay. Fascists have always been clowns, but it's a 21st century innovation that they're so proud of their juvenile behavior. Unfortunately, many in online journalism saw this coming a decade ago when the emergence of the dumbest social movement in America and probably world history, Gamergate. For those blissfully unaware of this history, Gamergate was the first major crowdsourced harassment campaign of the social media era.
No,
On its surface, it was mostly.
Go ahead.
Just so you have the definition, so you can pick it apart.
Yeah.
On its surface, it was mostly a bunch of young gamers having a year-long tantrum because they didn't want women getting girl cooties on their video games. But for those of us who watched it closely at the time, it was a troubling portent of what turned out to be a full-blown fascist movement.
Again, no. And stop trying to use women and black people and gay people and every other kind of diversity as a human shield. Especially because quite a lot of us who supported Gamergate and continue to, by the way, I'm not disavowing Gamergate no matter how many lies you tell about it, fuck off. A lot of us in Gamergate were women, black people, gays, disabled people, etc. Again, using myself as an example, I have at least three diversity cards in my game of moral strip poker. I am gay, I am disabled, and I am a religious minority. So yeah, you can take all of that and go fuck yourself. But no, again, and I will stress this, it wasn't women that were the problem, for many women sided with Gamergate and were Gamergaters. It was intersectional feminism and the institutional nepotism of intersectional feminism that was the issue. It was the disavowing or dismantling of meritocratic standards of game quality for the sake of ideological purity spiraling. With people like Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn, and Brianna Wu. The reason Gamergate started was because Zoe Quinn slept with a games journalist to get herself better game reviews, and when somebody noticed this, it became quite obvious that intersectional feminism was trying their damnedest to ideologically and morally co-opt gaming and geekdom in general as another victimhood identity. Now, this didn't work because gamers and geeks more generally don't tend to see themselves as victims, because a crucial part of geekdom as an identity is expertise and meritocracy, and also organically expressed passion for particular IPs and so on. And because of those three major differences between social justice and geekdom became opposed to social justice. Because, and I do genuinely believe this, had Gamergate not been a thing, social justice would have added geekdom to the progressive stack of victimhood identities. They just weren't expecting a bunch of gamers to go, fuck you, we're not victims, we believe in meritocracy and expertise, and those are good things to have. Keeping in mind, as I'm sure I don't need to explain here, but for the sake of clarity, I will explain, one of the crucial features of the various critical theory and neo-Hegelian ideologies that comprised intersectional social justice at the time, they don't believe in the importance or even the existence of expertise and meritocracy, as it doesn't apply to politics. And that was why geeks were opposed to social justice. And that's also why Gamergate as a movement got replicated no matter which vector of geekdom social justice tried to co-opt. That's why there was also a Comicsgate and a Fandom Menace vis-a-vis the Star Wars franchise. That's why there was opposition to things like Star Trek Discovery and why the Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who was so fucking poison, et cetera, and so on.
Sorry, just a little side note there. At some point, we really gotta consider writing, like us, just like on stream at one point, like crafting our own like Chibnall era of Doctor Who.
Yeah, honestly, if I and I just want to clarify this for emphasis and to point this out before we get the straw man. The problem wasn't that the Doctor was now female. They already tried that with the Master, and it worked excellently because Michelle Gomez was an excellent incarnation of, in her case, the Mistress. The reason why Jodie Whittaker didn't work was because she doesn't have the whimsy or gravitas or eccentricity that is required for any and every incarnation of the Doctor. Had Tilda Swinton or Haley Atwell been cast for the 13th Doctor, it would have gone over like gangbusters, because those two people can play a female incarnation of the Doctor convincingly and of a piece with all the other incarnations of the Doctor. Because this is the trick you have to play with Doctor Who. Every incarnation has to be uniquely different in their eccentricities, but also continuous and of a piece with all the previous incarnations, so that the audience can convincingly believe it's the same being, no matter who happens to be playing them, or what eccentricities this particular incarnation of the Doctor happens to have.
For record, I've given it some thought sometimes when bored. Not bored, but when it arises, right?
Yeah. As I have mentioned on stream many, many times, observe the evidence of my claim that he literally cannot help himself.
Well, okay. One thing I was going to mention, because I watched like some videos on YouTube regarding like Doctor Who fan films or even Doctor Who fan films. Just again, fans usually make pretty good stuff. There actually was like a series of short films back in like I believe the 70s or 80s, where there was a female Doctor who was supposed to be like the Doctor after. I don't think it was Baker's.
No, it was McGann's 8th Doctor that this happened in. And funnily enough, that era with the female Doctor fan film was created and produced by one Mr. Stephen Moffat, who would, of course, later become the actual showrunner for Doctor Who. And I think a lot of his fanfic ideas wound up crystallizing into the relationship that the Doctor had with River Song during his tenure, most likely.
But the general idea I would have gone with the Doctor, like Jodie Whittaker, right? Mm-hmm. And I've seen Jodie Whittaker in other stuff. She's a good actress. Obviously, again, it's that whole thing of the issue of the material isn't there.
Yeah. Chris Chibnall is mostly accountable to why Jodie's tenure didn't work. Because a good actor, or even a serviceable actor, can be elevated from bad to mid, or from bad to good, by a good director and a good creative team. And especially where it comes from good writing.
Yeah.
That's why, for all of Stephen Moffat's occasionally eccentric ways of writing Doctor Who, his era is one of the most beloved in modern Doctor Who history, because whatever you may think of some of his creative choices, he had the goods to make it work.
Right, but and it usually goes with. I'm mostly drawn back to the end of Peter Capaldi's Doctor.
Yeah.
regenerating the speech he's giving to himself for the next Doctor, which I feel like would have had, if handled correctly, would have had a major impact on the next incarnation.
Yeah, and here's where the ideological intersectional feminism comes in. They couldn't have done what would have made the most sense for her, which is base her tenure on Capaldi's last words, on 12's last words, because that would require a female character owing something to a male character, or basing her motivations on something that a male character gave her as a mission statement. And intersectional feminists are pathologically incapable of doing that. That's also why, as another example in a different franchise, even though it makes all the in-universe sense in the world that Doctor Strange would have saved Wanda during WandaVision and helped her fight Agatha Harkness, the writers couldn't bring themselves to do that, even though it made all the in-universe sense in the world, because that would require a male character saving a female character, and that is verboten by intersectional feminist social justice standards.
Okay. Okay, well, done. I'm kind of past that. Okay, so I pulled up the speech that he gave.
Yes.
And it's a kind of fun character, actually. All right. You wait a moment, Doctor. Right. Starts. Oh, there it is. With Martin saying, yeah. I suppose one more.
You probably could just find the clip if you searched it.
Yeah, but then I'd have to keep pausing it like every 20 seconds. So.
Okay, fair enough.
But again, it's just like, okay. You wait a moment, Doctor. Let's get this right. I've got a few things to say to you. Basic stuff first. Never be cruel, never be cowardly, and never eat pears. Was it ever established, by the way, that Billy Whitaker's doctor never liked pears?
No, they basically left. They left this speech. They left the speech on the cutting room floor for all intents and purposes. It never made any. It never made any impact on her character.
Remember, hate is always foolish, and love is always wise. Always try to be nice, and never fail to be kind. Oh, and you mustn't tell anyone. No one will understand it anyway. Except children. Children can hear it sometimes if their hearts are in the right place, and the stars are too. Children can hear your name. No, but nobody else. Nobody else ever. Laugh hard, run fast, be kind.
Yeah, and none of this ever came back into play vis-a-vis writing or molded her arc at all, because they were too busy making a bunch of political feminist points, up to and including something particularly egregious to my sensibilities, which is once again, and as ever, appropriating the shit out of witchcraft trial bullshit. Mind you, a couple doctors ago, David Tennant's doctor actually fought, for all intents and purposes, real witches in an episode called The Shakespeare Code. So you could have actually had an interesting story where the Doctor runs into the Carrionites again. But that would require an interest in in-universe logic or decent storytelling instead of political posturing. And again, like ever having a female character owe anything to a male character, it is top tier verboten by social justice writing standards. Even to the point that, and I'm not going to blame Chris Chibnall for this one because Russell T Davies of all people should know better. He took away Davros's Dalek mover chair because he didn't want to show a villain being disabled.
That's okay. Anyway, honestly, again, I think major inspirations to draw from for Jodie Whittaker's, or like a female doctor overall, would one kind of with the fan theory that a lot of people have had, Mary Poppins.
Well, they already kind of played that card with Missy. I'm not
Fair
sure
enough.
how closely she could veer to Mary Poppins without. Although honestly, and I've been saying this for years.
No. Okay, maybe not her. What about Nanny McPhee? If anyone remembers that movie.
Right, but actually, and I've been saying this for quite a while too. If you really wanted to do with the Doctor what you did with the Mistress, i.e. the female incarnation of the Master, what you could have done, and it would have been really interesting, is have Michelle Gomez stick around and have her play a female incarnation of the Doctor. And you could specifically make it a juxtaposition of how she plays the Master versus how she plays the Doctor. I.e., instead of shying away from what makes the Doctor and the Master different, you would hyperfixate on what makes the Doctor and the Master different by having Michelle Gomez play both characters, but play them as complete opposites to each other. And we know, per Peter Capaldi's casting and in the in-universe explanation for why the Doctor chose that character's face in particular, we know that faces the Doctor has previously seen can sometimes impact the form he takes on when he's regenerating. So imagine the Doctor essentially borrows Missy's face when they are regenerating into a woman. That would be a really good choice. Or alternatively, you could have also cast Alex Kingston, who famously plays River Song, as the first female incarnation of the Doctor, and then have River and the Doctor still be married and have her show up at some point, which would result in, obviously, a split screen effect, basically, of River interacting with the Doctor. And it would have been an interesting challenge for her to also differentiate how she plays River from how she plays the Doctor.
Either that or like,
I still think Hayley Atwell would be a really good choice to this.
That or maybe one of the older female companions as well.
You could, but
If
honestly,
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. You could, but another really good choice if you wanted to go with someone who hadn't, played a character before, would be Eva Green. I don't know why nobody thought to ask Eva Green if she wanted to do it.
Anyway, we gotta get back to this.
Yeah. Moving forward.
Yeah. Dojo owns everything to Gamergate, from its aesthetics to its tactics to its manpower, which largely draws on the same young men, now 10 years older, who were radicalized to the far right via social media. As journalist Max Red pointed out recently, Musk's project isn't like Gamergate, but straightforwardly is Gamergate, posed many of the exact same people, rehashing the same unjustified grievances, literally in between bouts of attacking federal workers as parasites. Musk and his fanboys also whine that video games are too woke and this justifies fascism. Jesus Christ.
It's not It's not fascist. It shrinks the size of government, allows for more aspects of people's lives to be outside of the influence of government, and he explicitly is a non-government agent doing this. So, again, based on Giovanni Gentile and Benito Mussolini's definition of fascism, it is literally categorically the opposite of the definition. And I don't want to hear Umberto Eco, because Umberto Eco casted his net so wide that literally anything could qualify as that. And therefore, his definition is not a substantive or meaningful definition, unlike Benito and Giovanni's definition, which are very, very exclusive in their specifics. But just to be clear, it wasn't social media that radicalized a bunch of, and I will point this out for emphasis, center-left people back in 2013 through 2015. It was specifically the actions of intersectional feminists and other social justice types, who are more broadly speaking neo-Hegelian or critical theorist types. It was specifically the actions, behaviors, and ideologies of the social justice left that turned a bunch of center-lefties into right-wingers. It wasn't some nebulous effect of social media. It was specifically a bunch of center-leftists going, hey, we're a bunch of classical liberals and classical libertarians. You shouldn't moralize and censor and try to dictate culture from on high, especially not while demonizing expertise, meritocracy, and in-universe logic. And social justice saying, you're the devil, repeatedly over and over. That ended up radicalizing a bunch of people. And I can give you very specific examples. The obvious one is the tragical history of Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad. He used to be the poster child online for classical English or Lockean liberalism. But you guys beat him with a cultural war of attrition so badly that even though you erroneously called him a tradcon a bunch of fucking times when he wasn't, when he was still the poster child for Gen Xer irreverence meets classical liberalism, eventually he got so punch drunk that he ended up becoming the very same tradcon devil, or at least something more approximating it, that you always claimed he was. And I don't think that's a one-off. I don't think that's a outlier. And no, I don't think this is just him unconcealing his power level or some bullshit. He categorically was not this tradcon type that you wanted him to be, but you beat him so savagely with that reputation regardless that he essentially went, fuck it, if they're going to call me that anyway, then I'm going to burn their entire edifice to the ground, which unfortunately means abandoning my previous liberal principles. Now, those of us who were fans of Sargon at the time very much do regret that transition, because 2013 through 2017 era Sargon was based as fuck. Modern Sargon basically just full on embraced the straw man, or at least a lot of the people he works with and who work for him kind of pushed him in that direction. I think a lot of the younger people he works with are actually worse than he is in this regard, and I think that might be part of why the transition was so extreme. But there is a categorical example of exactly what I'm talking about. You took someone who was not opposed to liberalism, and you made them opposed to liberalism by war of attrition. The same thing happened to Academic Agent. The same thing happened to the same thing happened to trying to think of some other famous examples. But regardless, the same thing happened to a bunch of significant content creators and their audiences, for the most part. And this all could have been avoided if you had just not been cunts. If you just had not been the ideological equivalent of witch burners that you were from 2013 to basically 5 minutes before Trump got elected for the second time. It's taken us 12 years to even get this far in getting our cultural considerations addressed and trying to reclaim the IPs that social justice has spent the last 12 years breaking from the inside out. And the fact that it took this long for us to even get you to acknowledge the people who were telling you 12 years ago that this isn't how leftism should work. Unfortunately, because of the war of attrition that you made the last 12 years, a lot of us have gone more right-wing than we otherwise would have. I still do hold to my left libertarian principles and want to fight you for the control of the left, because I think there should be a meaningful opposition to the right, and I don't particularly fancy giving the authoritarian right even the opportunity to come back into ascendancy. I grew up in the late 90s when the death throes of the TradCon family values shtick happened. And I remember the Bush years, which were the last final surge of that kind of mentality. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back to won't somebody please think of the children. I don't want to go back to everything you love is satanic. I don't want to go back to we should lynch the gays or burn the witches, etc. But unfortunately, at the moment, there is no meaningful left-wing alternative for the most part. So aside from people like me who are doggedly insisting that you cannot have the left all to yourselves, a lot of us have grown a lot more sympathetic to the right wing, because when the left went full moralistic authoritarian, the right-wing libertarians welcomed us with open arms. That's why most of my friends are a lot more right-wing than I am. And again, my only concern is I don't want the libertarian right to make the same mistake the libertarian left did in the 2010s and think that the Satanic Panic and the Red Scare were good after all. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. But what dojos to Gamergate goes much deeper than the gripes of those suffering arrested development. The propaganda tactics and strategic incoherence of Doge come straight out of that year of Gamergate sharpening their techniques through a sustained and still painfully stupid harassment campaign against feminists online.
My dear, Amanda Murkoff, Gamergate and Doge are both not incoherent. They're perfectly coherent and according with the ethos of irreverence in the face of authority and fuck my norms and institutions. You think they're incoherent because you don't understand them or you can't understand them. But rest assured, the reason you can't understand them is because your methods of understanding them are inadequate and ideologically warped. Not because they are incoherent, but because you refuse to acknowledge any of the points where they cohere. Because if you ever acknowledge the points where they cohered, you would realize you would have your "Are we the baddies" moment. To which the answer is yes. Just like when people like Vosh and Hassan Piker say a fascist is never honest about their beliefs, so reading the writings of fascists is not a good way to understand fascism. The main reason that people like that seem to have that blind spot vis-a-vis fascism is because if they actually let the ideas organically cohere in their heads, they would realize that fascism applies more to the people who call themselves anti-fascist, just like Winston Churchill foretold currently, than the people who those very same people are calling fascists. They would realize, wait, no, we're the baddies, we're the ones that fucked up. Now, mind you, the moment the left has that realization of maybe Gamergate and all the other assorted gates of geekdom had a point after all, and maybe we erroneously called people fascists when they weren't. The minute the left has that realization, I will gladly and gleefully applaud you and rejoin the left. But it's going to take some doing to get us there, because you guys have spent the last 12 years and some change gaslighting yourselves and ideologically warping anything resembling a straightforward rationale. Moving on.
The first lesson of Gamergate was the propaganda value of bad faith reinforced by endless repetition. Gamergaters were motivated primarily by two grievances. The feminists were criticizing sexism in video games, and, crucially, that these same feminists seemed to have more sex than the Gamergaters. Hold on. General actually brought this stuff up while we were talking, But a big split early on in GG was the people fighting the culture war, tackling corruption, or both. Plenty of people were upset by the whole sleeping with critics for ratings, but were fine with the gamers or dead articles or vice versa.
I will grant you that was a schism, but that schism, for the most part, ended up not really mattering, because a lot of the people who were fine with the Gamers Are Dead articles soon realized how wrong they were and joined in on the culture war. Because, well, nobody likes being told that they are a morally invalid category. And the feminists and other assorted social justice types insisted on attributing everything to gamers or geeks being an invalid identity, or being toxic, or being internalized self-hatred or derp reasons. Anyway, back to Amanda's article. You absolute moron. It had nothing to do with women or feminists having more sex than the Gamergaters. What it had to do with was ideological capture and nepotism. Because the approach of social justice back in and around about 2013 or so was to infiltrate and then co-opt pre-established IPs, and to ideologically and politically purify them, which usually involved the decoupling or the erasure of anything resembling merit, and mocking, deriding, and deliberately going against anyone who gave a fuck about things like in-universe logic, consistency of character, or established canon. And also demonizing and mocking anyone who does. That is what people cared about. They only cared about the sex lives of these feminists insofar as those feminists would use the moral leverage of the Whammon card to control the aforementioned IPs. And also the fact that anyone who criticized the likes of Anita Sarkeesian and Brianna Wu were told they were morally invalid rather than addressing any of their arguments. Moving forward.
John Joseph said no, some did, but a lot went to the leftist foot soldier ranks.
Eventually, but I think a lot of that happened later rather than earlier. Like the likes of Shoe on Head and Chris Ray Gun going full leftard didn't really happen until 2017, 2018, which still left us with a good, 3 or 4 years where everybody was mostly okay with each other as long as they were both opposed to the same bullshit practices. And like I said, I used Sargon as the example earlier, but I will say the same thing for the loss of Chris and Shu here. It's a real shame that the likes of Chris Ray Gun and Shu on Head wound up changing sides. Which I will say this for Shu. I have seen her make enough Manosphere content that I think her heart is still in the right place. But she's a moron for trusting the likes of H-Bomber Guy, Steve Shives, and Vosh. I really wish I really wish that the likes of Sargon and Shu could come to terms with each other again. Hopefully in hopes of de-radicalizing Sargon a bit, and also bringing Shu back to the fuck communist fold. But these are the dreams of the idyllic future that we could have if good things continue to happen. Maybe, I hope. I don't want to believe that everyone I used to consider a parasocial friend is too far gone. But the gulf might be too wide to breach, which would be a shame. Especially because this is the second time I've had something like this happen. The same thing kind of happened with the reviewer spear of Channel Awesome fame. You would think that the likes of Linkara and Blistered Thumbs would be on the side of Gamergate, but no. They bought into the toxic fandom narrative and bought into it hard, and the rest is a very tragic history. Moving on.
Yeah. What? Okay. I'm gonna be honest with you. Just for time's sake, I think we're gonna have to read a little bit more.
Yeah, we might have to split this one in half and cover the rest of it next week.
Yeah. Alright. This is no exaggeration. The whole campaign first started as targeted harassment of a female, now non-binary, because she wasn't, whatever. A video game developer whose bitter ex-boyfriend riled up a mob against her by telling them she had sex with lots of men. It soon spread to target other outspoken feminists, especially those who criticized video games, but the underpinning of sexual jealousy was always present.
No, it wasn't. It was because Zoe Quinn was using her sexuality as a tool for institutional capture and political advancement. I would remind you, and everyone else who makes this bullshit argument because it's fucking annoying, that the reason people gave a shit about who Zoe Quinn was sleeping with was because she was sleeping with a games journalist who suspiciously gave her a 10 out of 10 star rating on a hipsterific niche game, which was a depression simulator called Depression Quest. And by the way, not only did she sleep with a games journalist just to get good reviews on her game, she and a bunch of her feminist cronies blackmailed him into suicide eventually. So you're gonna have to miss me with all that shit, and I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to get out the world's smallest violin and play a very sarcastic dirge for you, because when someone on our side, or broadly on our side, bullies someone to the point of suicide, then we can talk about moral equivalencies here. But yeah, no, the woman and her friends, as a mob, blackmailed and berated this guy to the point of killing himself. So my sympathy for the poor put upon feminist women is very, very short in its supply. Moving on.
Sorry, stretching. Yeah, I'll read this little bit left, and then we'll move on.
Yep.
All right. Gamergaters realized quickly that outsiders would not be sympathetic to their real complaint, which was, how dare women who have sex more than me make me feel bad about my sexist video games? Instead, they invented a claim that female game developers were exchanging sex with male journalists for good reviews.
This is verifiable. There is evidence. We know that the person whose case started this whole avalanche was a games journalist, and he suspiciously gave a depression simulator, mind you, the gaming equivalent of an art house hipster movie, a 10 out of 10 rating. Do you honestly expect me to believe that was organic? Or that the aforementioned emotional blackmail that drove him to suicide doesn't imply her attempt to ideologically and institutionally capture gaming from the inside and demonize anyone who tells on her, essentially. And yeah, it had nothing to do with women, it had nothing to do with sex, it had nothing to do with sexism, other than the fact that feminist games journos kept presupposing sexism where there was none. What it had to do with was we should be focused on games having objective or intersubjective merits, not moral or socio-political purity spiraling. And the intersectional feminists very much disagreeing and trying to burn gaming to the ground from the inside out. Moving on.
It wasn't true, but ethics in journalism was credible sounding enough to trick gullible journalists into writing stories that cast Gamergate in a more sympathetic light than the misogynist witch hunt deserved.
Okay, again, and I'm going to emphasize this for you, and again, use myself as an example here. Quite a lot of people who supported Gamergate were gay, female, black, whatever other diversity credential you care to point out. The difference is that they were people of those various diverse backgrounds who had independent thoughts rather than ideological capture. Don't you tell me that the movement, the center-left movement that was Gamergate in 2013, which had more diverse people in it than Social Justice at the time, despite the fact that it did not go out of its way to recruit diverse people, and Social Justice very much did. Don't you dare tell me that it was just some misogynist white men that heard derp. What it was essentially the left-wing equivalent of the Satanic Panic argument. The Satanic Panic argument being, this piece of art, this IP, this game, this whatever, has occult or satanic overtones that will morally corrupt our youth, and therefore we should have a code that morally arbitrates the moral content of games and media rather than its meritocratic content. And Social Justice or what was broadly, anti-Gamergate in 2013 was the same argument. Just swap satanic for misogynist. It all makes sense if you take the average Jack Thompson opinion of games during the Satanic Panic and the average Anita Sarkeesian opinion in 2013 in her Tropes v. Women series, and just play compare and contrast or Mad Libs. You can literally switch and swap one for the other at any point you want to, because their arguments were functionally and framework wise the same. They were just using different ideological MacGuffins. For Jack Thompson, won't somebody please think of the children's is more morally potent than won't somebody please think of the women's. But Anita Sarkeesian and company found that from a left-wing perspective, won't somebody please think of the women's was more effective. But the only thing that's changed in that argument is where the emphasis is. And to be fair, Anita Sarkeesian's argument also had an element of think of the children. It was just the premise of Anita Sarkeesian's work, for the most part, was we should morally and politically purify gaming, because if somebody doesn't think of the children, then children will grow up to be misogynists. And again, the only difference between that and a Jack Thompson ramble is his argument was we need to think of the children lest they grow up to be Satanists. But especially when you consider how much similarity there is between Jack Thompson's general opinion of Satanists and Anita Sarkeesian's general opinion of the people she claims to be misogynists, you will notice they're exactly the fucking same. In an intersectional feminist mind, a misogynist is damn near or at least at the time, because of course the termites have died quite a bit since then, but at least at the time, the worst thing an intersectional feminist could think to call someone was misogynist. Just like in the old days, the worst thing a family values tradcon can think to call someone was a Satanist. It's the same argument, just with some MacGuffins switched around. Moving on.
Right, okay. Next thing. It's originally from comicbook.com, written by Chris Agar, or Agar, published March 12th, 2025. If Superman fails, Warner Brothers could go the way of Fox.
DC just can't catch a break, can they?
I really can't.
Although honestly, I've heard a rumor that if the new DC the DCU falls, that Universal wants to buy them, and I honestly think that DC might be in a better place if Universal had them rather than Warner Brothers. So I'm not sure which side of this I'm on. I mean, it would suck if Superman is good and doesn't do well, but it might be better in the long run for this one to fail, and that way the next one can be better.
Alright. James Gunn's Superman has a lot riding on it as the first feature film of the new DC Universe franchise. Its box office performance will go a long way to determining where the shared universe goes from here. But there might be more than just the future of DC Comics adaptations at stake. Superman could determine the future of Warner Brothers itself. A report in Puck detailing numerous behind-the-scenes issues the studio is facing notes that Superman is under a staggering amount of pressure as it gears up for its release this summer. If it falls short of expectations, Warner Brothers could suffer the same fate as Fox.
Depends on what their expectation for it is. I don't think there's any universe where this movie hits $1 billion. Which is what freaked Warner Brothers out last time when BVS didn't reach $1 billion. I do think it's at least plausible that it might wind up somewhere in the 700 million range or so. And I also think there's a possibility that because so many people are butthurt of the mistreatment of Henry Cavill, that it might wind up making around the 500 mark, just like Man of Steel did, just with a different audience championing it rather than previously, which would kind of be funny from a like detached symmetry sort of way. And again, like I say, I think it might be better for Warner Brothers if they did get bought by Universal. So I'm not sure which side I'm on, but it will depend on whether the movie's actually any good. If the movie's actually, good, obviously I'm going to support it because I believe in supporting things which are good so that we will have more good things and punishing things which are bad so we will have less bad things. So therein lies the question. But realistically, I think 700 million or so, kind of like the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie or Captain America Winter Soldier back in the day, which made like 712 or so. I think that's probably the best case scenario for Superman's box office, and a moderately bad case scenario. I mean, it's not the worst scenario. The worst scenario is it performs like the fucking Marvels. But the worst realistic case scenario, I think, is it winds up somewhere in the vicinity of the same 500 or so million that Man of Steel made 10 years ago, or 12 years ago, actually, because it came out in 2013. Gee, a lot of news cycles are nostalgically looking back on 2013 now, aren't they? Interesting. Moving on.
If Warner's can't finally make the DC franchise work, there's genuine fear that the studio will go the way of Fox, which was swallowed by Disney in 2019. The report reads, "It's important to note that this is not speculation that Disney will buy WB, but there's a belief that WB will be acquired by a larger conglomerate."
I have heard rumors that it's Universal who's eyeing for Warner Brothers, which honestly I wouldn't mind either from a business standpoint, because then it's a studio with a set of theme parks against another studio with a set of theme parks. And I do like the idea of, especially given how much DC is spending on the Marvel Campus concept expansion to Disney World, I do kind of like the idea that Universal would have access to the DC characters as a counterbalance. That does seem very symmetrical in a nice, orderly way that wouldn't be bad for anyone involved.
All right. Well,
yeah. Moving on.
Starring David Cornswet as the Man of Steel, Superman hits theaters in July. Warner Brothers has been busy promoting the project, with the first official trailer being released back in December. Studio also showcased their new look at the film during this year's Puppy Bowl, commemorating Krypto the Superdog's role in the movie.
Okay. I still would prefer a Superman who actually had to get established to one that's already been established, but I do like the idea of Krypto, because I think a lot of people in my and Brainstormers generations remember the Krypto the Superdog cartoon from when we were kids. So
when I was a kid, you were probably a preteen.
Well, there's only 4 years between us, so
No, you're still old as shit, though.
Yes, but that has less to do with my actual chronological age and more to do with being an old soul, TM. Which people in my family have been saying that I was whatever age I was, going on about 70 for years. And I'm not going to say they're wrong, because they're not wrong by any definition.
As DC Studios irons out its slate, a Superman sequel has not been officially announced. However, Gunn recently confirmed he is currently working on a new DC movie script. which may or may not be for Superman 2. Still, Superman helps lay the foundation for the DC universe by featuring characters who will be part of other upcoming projects, such as Millie Alcock's Supergirl and Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner.
It's so stupid not having him be the my brain is crashing.
Hal
for some
Jordan.
reason. Thank you.
What the fuck?
It's so stupid they didn't make him Hal. It's kind of like how they're.
We're not brushing past that. What
I
the
know.
fuck, Dalton?
My brain had an aneurysm, I guess. But it's just like it's just like how.
So I do want to. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Obviously, the actor they do have playing Hal, I don't think is a bad choice. But
Okay, so Hal is actually going to be involved then.
yeah, he's in Lanterns. He is playing with the guy who's also playing with John.
Okay, that's
Hold on.
That's at least less stupid than I thought they were being. I thought they were just fast tracking the later characters to show up earlier. Like starting with Damian Wayne instead of starting with Dick Grayson, like everyone in the fucking universe knows they should have. I do hope they cast. I mean, the ideal scenario would be Warner Brothers tells Matt Reeves to get the fuck over himself and making Robert Pattinson the Batman of the DCU. But assuming that's not what they're doing for dumb reasons, if they must insist on there being two Batmen at one time in the DCU, I am hoping they'll cast Jensen Ackles, because Jensen Ackles has wanted to play Batman for literal decades, and he's even played Batman in animation. So I don't see, and we know he can do superheroics in live action because Soldier Boy exists. So there's absolutely no reason why he couldn't play Batman, and he's definitely young enough and in good shape enough and willing to get in even better shape if he has to play Batman. So ideally, assuming that Warner Brothers wants to not be stupid for 5 minutes, if you must insist on there being two Batmen, one of them should be Jensen Ackles. It's still a stupid idea, and I think you should get Matt Reeves to get the fuck over himself, but assuming you're not doing that, get Jensen Ackles.
Kyle Chandler is Hal Jordan for DCU.
Where would I recognize him from, if
Hold on.
anywhere?
Yeah. It's been stuff. Well, he was in Godzilla King of the Monsters. He was the military dude, the father of the girl who plays Eleven in Stranger Things.
Ah, okay, now I know who you mean. Yeah, I love King of the Monsters. King of the Monsters was freaking awesome. Yet another win for Michael Dougherty.
He's been in a lot of stuff. Like, again, it's like one of those actors, you see him.
Yeah, it's the oh that guy disease.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, he's in Friday Night Lights. I think he was the coach in that. I probably haven't seen that show.
No, I haven't. I don't. The only reason I would watch sports-related media is for porn and self-stimulation purposes.
Thank you for saying that. He was in Peter Jackson's King Kong.
Okay.
He was Bruce Baxter.
Oh. Yeah. That didn't click in my head until you said it, but now that you say it, I can see it. Okay.
I don't think he's a bad choice.
Still think it's stupid to not have Nathan be Hal, but
well, yeah, okay. The issue there obviously is that Nathan has has the charisma and Like, he's played characters that are basically Hal Jordan without the power ring.
It's the thing of having characters play the wrong, or having actors play the wrong character that does it. Because ironically, I think that Ryan Reynolds could play a better Guy Gardner than Nathan Fillion can, because Guy Gardner is the fast-talking asshole of the Green Lantern Corps. Whereas Nathan Fillion is better at playing maybe not entirely straight-laced character, because he's good at playing rogues on occasion, like Richard Castle was kind of roguish sometimes, as was Mal from Firefly. But if not exactly a straight-laced character, at least in the same neighborhood as a straight-laced character.
Punkish rogue, if kinda.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a noble punk.
Yeah, and that's not Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner isn't being Guy Gardner properly unless you want to smack him every time he shows up.
There's also, again, it's like the guy has also voiced Hal Jordan before, in various animations. So
yeah. It's a really counterintuitive and counter logic choice to have him play a lantern, but not the lantern that everyone and their dog, including him, knows that they want him to play.
Honestly, if anything, I'd also be cool with him playing Alan Scott. I could see him playing a good Alan Scott.
You know what? I could see that too, and it would finally, it would pick up the ball that Black Adam first kicked, which would be, give me back my Justice Society, goddamn you.
Yeah, it is a pretty integral part of DC lore, because it is the first superhero team in terms of the DC universe. I think it also was the first superhero team of comics in general.
And if we're playing with a younger Superman who got his start in the Silver Age rather than the Golden one, having the Justice Society be what inspires Clark to become the kind of hero he becomes would make so much sense in universe and would make every fanboy ever happy. But again, DC for some reason seems to want to play everything on hard mode.
BDW, why do a lot of people seem to think Green Lantern is stupid? Like to point it was a whole gag in the Lego movie. Because
Golden Age Green Lantern was vulnerable to wooden implements, and most people don't keep in mind that the color spectrum of the lanterns associate with specific emotional entities, and so a lot of people who are too stupid to do 5 seconds of Googling think that Green Lantern's vulnerability to yellow is the color yellow only, and not specifically the energy of fear that it's supposed to be.
Also, well, it's a similar thing with like also the
Aquaman.
2011. I was gonna get to that, but it was also, I was wondering up, the 2011 movie certainly didn't help the reputation of Green Lantern either.
Yeah. But point being, the area that GL sometimes finds himself in is the area that Aquaman used to, when people assumed, oh, he's just a guy who can talk to fish, rather than
realizing.
A character.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, I know you would have things to say, but I've had this whole thing built up before. Like,
please.
Yeah, Robot Chicken, I think, was certainly a big contributor to, and I like Robot Chicken, but they made a lot of jokes about that because, again, a lot of people didn't understand. But what I'm getting at, a lot of people don't realize, actually looking into the depth and lore of Aquaman, that the motherfucker owns basically a third of the planet, the king of the sea, all 7 seas.
Well, in addition to that, he's...
If you want to say, please say peace. Just
okay. He's a character who is physically almost as strong as Superman, and his telepathy skills are second only to the Martians. in DC canon. It's not
Yeah, you
just
can't just.
restricted.
Yeah, it's not only.
Yeah, it's
It's
not.
not just-
It's not stupidly restricted to fish or anything. Like
Um,
people always seem to forget that in order to survive underwater, he has to survive the fucking pressure of underwater, and especially given that he can also walk on land, his body has to be insanely durable not to give him the bends every 5 minutes as soon as he goes from being underwater to being on the surface or vice versa. Not to mention the aforementioned, his telepathy is a universal thing, and therefore his telepathy is second only to beings like the Martians, who are just inherently better at telepathy than everybody
Also-
because that's one of their main skills.
Also, let's not forget the fact that because he is, for one thing, given his heritage, he is born of land and of sea. He's Atlantean royalty, born to a lighthouse keeper in America, right?
Mhm.
He is the reason that that Atlantis has not gone to war with the world. It keeps the peace.
Yeah,
Actively chooses that, and he is one of the very few heroes, I believe, that is one of the DC heroes that is willing to kill.
Well, that, but also, given how much raw materials he would have access to, laying claim to every ocean on Earth, not only is he almost as strong and durable and capable as Superman physically, and
He's probably as
almost
rich.
on par with Martian Manhunter in terms of telepathy, he's also arguably one of the few characters who can say he's financially better connected than Bruce Wayne. And
Also, hold on. Sorry, I feel like you were gonna bring up Wonder Woman. I thought of that too.
that yes, but also given the weird ways in which the Atlantean's backstory is magic related and the powers that his trident is supposed to have, unlike Superman, he's not crippled by magic, and he's almost as well connected vis-a-vis magic and mythology as Diana is. So, in a lot of ways, the only reason why Aquaman isn't more respected is mostly just because he minds his own fucking business. Like he doesn't. His bombastic personality notwithstanding, he doesn't really like to. I mean, anyone who's seen Brave and the Bold knows that he can be somewhat of a bombastic credit hog and stuff. But given all the things he could claim credit for or influence over that he doesn't by simple dint of not wanting to, he's only in the background of the Justice League because he chooses to be, essentially. He's not as good as any of the other characters at their respective niches, but he's a character who is second only to those characters who specialize in stuff at the areas where they're specializing, interestingly enough. Moving on.
Also, I think this was Golden Age, but it was pretty dark. Black Manta, who's like the archenemy of, I don't know if he started out that way, but he has proven himself to be the archenemy of Aquaman. Killed Aquaman's baby by putting him in a bubble, basically suffocating him.
Didn't they end up referencing that in Aquaman 2?
I think I mentioned it when we watched the trailer. I was wondering if they were going to do that.
I think we both were asking whether they're gonna play the infanticide card.
That's what it's called. Okay. I'm just saying, like, the guy is. It's a pretty storied character, and I feel like, again, it's like one of those. I think the issue is, like, again, it's a whole Like,
The character assassination and assassination started with the Super Friends. That's the patient zero of all the Aquaman talks to fish jokes. But again, it's kind of a it's kind of a weird world we find ourselves in, where pick any of the specialist characters that we just listed. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Martian Manhunter, etc. And they all get some certain degrees of respect. But Aquaman, who is second only to those respective specialists at their respective specialty, and therefore is a much more well-rounded character, doesn't get respect from anyone, despite being more powerful than 99% of the population of the DC universe. Lol.
right, and the thing I was going to bring up about Wonder Woman is, well, divine lineage, because they all really come, because with
Yeah, the Atlanteans are divine too, similar to the Amazons of Themyscira, and that's a whole another thing.
But I was also going to point out the fact. Sorry, trying to troll. But he's also probably as skilled as a fighter as Wonder Woman.
Well, we have seen them sparring before in the comics, and it's not like a one-off thing. It's been pretty clear that when Diana wants a sparring partner, she either goes to Clark or she goes to Arthur.
Okay, but to kind of round it back to the Green Lantern thing, especially Hal. The thing with Hal is, relatively to like the other Lanterns who were created after him, with the exception of Guy Gardner, because I'll be honest, he's never interested me. Like, I think the only version of Guy Gardner that like interested me was from Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, because Guy Gardner is an asshole. That's sort of his. Like he is that asshole. He is the douchebag Green Lantern who you want to smack on sight.
But comparatively, how well, I said noble punk earlier to kind of describe him. He's also somewhat of a paragon. Not to say that he doesn't have interesting stories or development, but comparatively to like John Stewart, who is a former soldier who turned architect, who has the ability to, like, because of his architectural mind and hell, even military experience,
he's better with the constructs. Yeah.
Hell, even Kyle Rayner, who is a
artist.
I think he was supposed to be a cartoonist.
Yeah, cartoonist actually. Which is ironic.
Which made him able to create so many more fascinating, interesting designs. And not to mention, he had like a whole. Well, given Kyle Rayner, with him, he was also interesting because this was after Hal Jordan lost his mind and became Parallax. And destroyed basically almost the entirety of the Green Lantern Corps. And Kyle Rayner kind of had to help restart that. And he was kind of like the last Lantern at the time.
Out of universe, the main reason why Hal Jordan is kind of the default Green Lantern is he was the first sci-fi Lantern. He was the first Silver Age Lantern, the one that has the space cop aspect that most people think of when they think of Green Lantern. I will remind everyone, both because I enjoy to and because the Golden Age is kind of my specialty, that the original Green Lantern was a magic-based character. It wasn't until the Silver Age, specifically trying to kind of capitalize on the popularity of space opera and space adventure stories like Star Wars, that made Green Lantern as a space cop a thing.
Right. Actually, that's actually funny you bring it up, because I remember watching some videos that talked about like describing the Green Lantern story overall, like the series and all that, and like just the lore of it. It is very. It's DC's Star Wars in a way.
Yeah, because they specifically made it that because they wanted to. the pulp era where almost everybody had at least some magic to their backstory was fading, much to my chagrin, and the order of the day was aliens and sci-fi. So aliens and
Well, yeah,
sci-fi it became.
he was created in the late 50s, early 60s, which was around the time of the space race and the atomic age. And so stuff like that started to take more influence to the comics and storytelling, just culture overall.
Into the 70s with the advent of Star Wars, and then voila, we have
late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
we have the zeitgeist that gave birth to the second era of Green Lanterndom.
Green Lantern, the Green Lantern Corps, as like a comic series or whatever, is supposed to be very much like, again, as the video, and I'll probably send it in the Discord when I have time, that it is supposed that it touches on Destiny, but like the old kind of Destiny where it's not like this grand thing. It is more not self-fulfilling prophecy, effectively.
Hero, classic like Campbellian hero's journey territory.
Yes, and
sort of the presaged archetypes thing.
Yeah, and like especially if you look at like Blackest Night, or is it Darkest Night?
No, Blackest Night.
Yeah.
Brightest Day was the optimistic follow-up.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was just very like. So, and that was always kind of the appeal, especially with like the revamping of the Green Lanterns, in the Silver Age. Again, the issue that really comes about is most people don't want to. Again, the 2011 thing was like keeping him more. And to be fair, it's his sector, right? He's supposed to be like guarding the sector of space. That's his jurisdiction.
And for those that want to know, the reason why Earth has so many fucking Green Lanterns is because in DC continuity, the Earth is basically the keystone to the entire universe, and that's also why so many metahumans and shit happen there as well.
Actually, relatively recently, the Guardians actually declared that there will be no more Green Lanterns selected from that sector because it's been known as the planet of heroes, like Earth, because it has so many protectors already.
It's basically an excuse to have the importance of Earth to the readers made canon in universe, which I do like that they actually put in the effort to make that. Take that from a thing that happens out of universe to a thing that happens in the universe. Because
I'm not gonna lie, I would love to see other members of the Green Lantern Corps interact with like heroes of Earth. I know but it would be interesting because relatively, from what I understand, from what I've seen of, and feel free anyone to tell me differently, but it only seems like Earth, with some exceptions, Earth has the most superheroes,
Yeah.
Like there seem to be like intergalactic traveling superheroes, or the Green Lantern Corps or something like that. But
yeah, occasionally an alien planet will get one, like what's his name? Adam Strange from Ron, or Zurathar, or what was the magic? What was the magic planet in Legion of Superheroes, where basically everyone is a fucking wizard?
Yeah.
I forget.
Well,
Xerox, I think, was the name of the magic planet from Legion of Superheroes.
I guess Legion of Superheroes could technically count because they're heroes from all over the universe
at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because high tech future.
Also, I find it interesting because it's also stated because there are no Green Lanterns anymore, right? By the time of the 31st century, or is it 31st or 32nd?
I think it's 31st.
Okay. The 31st century. There's no more Green Lanterns. It's just the Legion of Superheroes because they're inspired by like all the heroes of the past. So that makes me interested. When did the Green Lantern Corps effectively disband or retire?
I'm curious as to why. Like the most intuitive answer as to why why there wouldn't be any more Green Lanterns is if the power batteries dried up. Like if they actually ran out of energy. But I don't think that's the excuse they usually give. Come to think of it, I've never done research on this. I will have to do research on this because the most intuitive reason why the lanterns are no longer a thing is because the power batteries would dry up. Because while the power batteries are quote unquote nearly infinite, it is important to stress they're not infinite. But then again, in most versions of the lanterns, the emotional spectrum is literally of like light energy is literally powered by the amount of those emotions that occur in existence. So on the other hand, even though the reservoir of energies isn't technically infinite, as long as there's enough living creatures to sustain the emotions, I don't see why it would ever dry up.
Okay. I'm getting a few different answers, obviously, because different countries and all that stuff.
Yep.
First one was Yacht, who is the entity for the Green Lantern Corps, burned out.
Oh, so the green equivalent to Parallax, basically, if I'm remembering the quasi Lovecraftian entities at the heart of the power batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or wiped out or hidden, like Green Lantern Corps, or was a future in a mini-series, The Legion of Three Worlds. Mogo, the planet Green Lantern, has long been dead, and without him, there is no way to distribute the rings. Thus, there is no Green Lantern Corps in the 31st century.
Oh, not Mogo. I like Mogo. You shouldn't. How do you kill a planet?
Really?
These are questions I must ask now. I love comic books.
Well, a
How
planet
is it-
itself, I'm sure a planet itself can die over time, obviously.
Right.
I don't think
But
it said how old Mogo actually is in terms of a planet.
like short of being like blasted by his sun going supernova, I can't see anything physical actually destroying him. And can't if I remember correctly, Mogo can move. He's not trapped in a stationary orbit. He can like move from one star system to another. So I can't even imagine how that fucking works because
I'm also just
if
realizing
if I
something.
if I'm right in that he can move, if he found out his sun was about to go supernova, one, you'd think the other lanterns would do him a solid and help. Two, he would just move to a new star system
It was
eventually.
Jimna Gray. It was Eaton. Are there Planet Eaters in DC?
Not like an equivalent to Galactus, I don't think. I'm pretty sure that there isn't a DC equivalent to Galactus, or if there is, it must be as a part of a thing that I'm not familiar with. But to the best of my knowledge,
there is a Planet Eater.
Okay.
Depends on what universe for DC. Okay, but there's a Planet Eater. It's a device. From War World.
Okay, so not a being so much as a big fuck off. Basically a Death Star laser thing.
It destroys planets and uses the energy to create a new planet within itself.
Okay, so
It's created by Brainiac.
short of someone basically putting a gun to Mogo's head, then I don't know how he could die.
Anyway, yeah, we went on a rant there.
We did.
Okay, back to
It
this.
happens. Back on point.
While it isn't surprising that Superman will play a key role in the DC Universe's future, it has been alarming to hear the fate of the entire Warner Brothers studio could be resting on it. That is an inordinate amount of pressure for any big budget tentpole. Even one centering around a character as recognizable as Superman. A closer look into WB's business practices could explain why the stakes might be so dire. The studio's current leadership has overseen multiple projects that either underperformed at the box office or went over budget during production, leading to speculation that DC Studios co-heads Peter Safran could become the new head of Warner Brothers Pictures. Despite releasing recent hits like Barbie and Dune Part 2, there are concerns that several of WB's upcoming films, many of which are pricey, original fare without a built-in fan base, won't be large enough draws to make up the cost. If WB films continue to struggle financially, then the studio could end up being acquired, which would be a shocking turn of events.
We've been saying this for a long time, but
About 2 years now.
if not more, Warner Brothers is their own worst enemy. It really is as simple as that. They keep making these nonsensical decisions that make no sense to anyone but themselves, and I swear to God, not even themselves most of the time, and being surprised when they're incredibly like, I get that a studio has to take risk every now and again, but when every single decision you make is betting on 22 red in the metaphorical roulette,
yeah.
when 22 is a black number, dickhead, but you know.
I don't even think it's them taking risks, because it's clear that they're not trying to take risk. They're more just fucking up the risks that they would be taking if they let the people they hired to make these things actually, fucking.
I think it's also a mistake to reboot DC immediately after the last one crashed. I would have, if I were running Warner Brothers, of course, if I were running Warner Brothers, a lot of things would be different, but that's neither here nor there. If I were running Warner Brothers and I had somehow gotten myself into this situation, which I would never do because I'm not a fucking moron, but assuming I came in and the studio was already in this situation, I would have waited at least 10 years to reboot DC. Frankly, the best case scenario is Black Adam came out in what, 2023? I think. Right? Or was it last year?
No, I think it was 2 years ago.
Okay, so Black Adam comes out in 2023. If I were a person that Warner Brothers ever listened to, I would tell them, not only should you wait at least a decade before rebooting DC again, but specifically, set up your next DC slate to begin in 2038, which would mean that your new DC universe would coincide with the 100-year anniversary of DC Comics, essentially. And yes, I realize this is also because I'm me and I'm biased, but it makes sense as a business decision. So shut up. Have your hypothetical future 2038 DC run start with the fucking Golden Age and go from there. It's really not that hard. God damn it. It's so easy, and they will do literally anything but the obvious own goal they have. Like, what? Because let's be real here. From both a creative and business standpoint, Marvel owns the Golden Age. The famous Marvel bullpen of Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and Jack Kirby owned the Silver Age. But as a consequence of them having owned the Silver Age, there's only really two or three characters that Marvel had in the Golden Age. One of them is Captain America, one of them is Namor the Submariner, and the third one is the original android Human Torch. But for all intents and purposes, those are the only three major characters that Marvel has in the Golden Age. Who does DC have in the Golden Age? Pick one, and it was DC who... Because, yeah, in the Silver Age, Marvel had a landslide stranglehold over comics, for the most part. But, cut to 20 years or so before that, and DC was basically all but the only game in town. And I don't understand for the life of me why DC doesn't use the advantages they have at their disposal. You want to compete with Marvel so bad, DC? Go somewhere Marvel can't follow you. And where Marvel can't follow you is the Golden Age, because of the three characters that Marvel has in the Golden Age, they've already done one of them. They've already done the one that everybody knows. They've already done Captain America. And that movie was really, really fucking good. But they're probably never gonna be so obscure character happy that they make the android Human Torch a thing while also trying to make the Fantastic Four work. And they've already used Namor and completely shit the bed on that score, but that's neither here nor there. So,
alright.
So the most sensible thing they could do, DC I mean, is go the one place Marvel can't follow you, which is Golden Age period pieces, for the love of fuck. And the Golden Age period pieces have a built-in stop clock on them. Because you can do 20 years worth or so of DC Golden Age movies. And then, when your actors start aging out and aesthetics change and so on and so forth, you can start doing the Silver Age. And then again, and then again. Unlike Marvel, you have an innate, wall between eras that you can make use of for practical business reasons. All you have to do is actually use it.
Alright, done.
Yeah, moving on.
Summer is frequently a busy time at the theater, and this year will be no exception. Superman finds itself sandwiched between other notable studio blockbusters in Jurassic World Rebirth, July 2nd, and Marvel's Fantastic Four First Steps, July 25th. Both of those represent stiff competition. I will honestly argue more Fantastic Four First Steps, but that's just me.
Yeah, I doubt that Jurassic World is really competing with any fucking one.
The previous three Jurassic World movies all grossed over $1 billion, and Fantastic Four is generating much excitement in the early stages of its promotional campaign. Depending on how those two films are received, Superman could have its work cut out for itself at the box office. Hopefully, reviews for Superman are strong, and fans come out in full force to usher in a new era for DC.
I find it more likely that Superman and Fantastic Four are basically going to wind up eating each other's box office potential, and so they'll both wind up somewhere in the middle. Although I just realized Marvel gave me Fantastic Four as a birthday present this year, because July 25th is my birthday. Interesting. If you want to give me a good present, Marvel, tell RDJ to get lost. I don't care how many people want to see him come back, and get Mads Mikkelsen or Christoph Waltz to play Doom instead, and make him a fucking techno sorcerer, for the love of God. It's really not that hard.
Honestly, I could see Christoph Waltz. Well, he doesn't do a lot of.
I think Mads Mikkelsen would be better, but they already used him for Caecilius, and that's not my only reason for even allowing for a second option, because
Well, I'm
in
trying to think of an
every sane world, Mads Mikkelsen is playing Doom, but we don't live in a sane world. We live in clusterfuck verse. So
okay,
you know,
I'm thinking of someone who's in similar. I don't know if he's similar age as Pedro Pascal, but I remember seeing him as a pick for Doom. Okay. Okay, yeah, no, they're similar ages. Cillian Murphy?
oh, Killian Murphy is the name you're thinking of.
No, are you sure it's not? He's not.
It's
not
it's
Cillian?
it's Killian Murphy. But
No, it's Killian. It's pronounced as. Okay, no, you're right. My bad.
yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
Again, it looks like Cillian. So it's
It's a crapshoot with C's and K's.
yeah.
You never know which side they're on. But being as it may, I could see it, but I could see it, but I still think it's a mistake to. Killian Murphy is the guy you get if and when both Maz and Crystal say no. If you don't bother asking the first two before you get Killian, then fuck you. But if they both say no, or if they're busy filming other projects, then maybe okay, fine.
Well, okay. If you ever, I don't know. Would you have ever watched Peaky Blinders?
I've seen it. They use one of my favorite songs for the title sequence, the Red Right Hand song.
Right. Well, I'm just
Even
saying,
though it has
like,
absolutely nothing to do with Peaky Blinders, but oh well. It's a good song.
It's just like the character he plays in there, Thomas Shelby. I think has a lot of characteristics similar to Doom, and the voice he kind of does for that. I think obviously he could make it a little lower either with editing, or he could himself do that.
Honestly, if they hadn't already wasted Giancarlo Esposito, I could even see the argument of Giancarlo Esposito as Doom, but they've wasted him. They wasted him as a role no one's going to remember in Cap 4. So, oops. Anyway, next article.
Yeah. Not who else would you have cast? Giancarlo.
Is his mic cutting out for anyone else, or is it just on my end?
So I think we're gonna have to skip the other one.
Okay, next week. Yeah, okay, it's not just me. That's good. And then it was quiet. Okay, he's rebooting.
Okay. Hello.
Okay, you're fine. Good.
All right. It literally, as soon as you said it was cutting out, I literally, I was it stopped working like altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Like on my end.
Technical difficulties.
I have an old ass computer and shitty internet. Great combo.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me present again.
Yep.
All right. Comicbookmovie.com. Peter Safran's rumored DC Studios departure could pose a major problem for the DCU. It's one of the many things that could pose a major problem for the
Yeah,
DC.
DC can't catch a break, it seems.
So this is written by Josh Wilding, published March 3rd, 2025. Oh, March 13th. Sorry, not March 3rd. My bad. Earlier this week, a report from Puck claimed that Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav is looking to end Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi's stint as Warner Brothers Pictures co-chiefs. They spent an awful lot more than they've made for the studio since taking charge of its film slate, and the frugal Zaslav, who hasn't shied away from scrapping near-completed projects, appears to have reached the end of his tether. I mean, not entirely wrong, because if I remember correctly, Batgirl, I don't think it was going to do well, mind you, in the box office, but it was basically finished, and I think it honestly still deserved it. Like, writing that off as a tax thing was kind of a shitty thing to do, in my opinion.
I'm fine with that one being written off. The one that burns my ass is Coyote versus Acme. The fact that they shelved that is just unforgivable and stupid.
Fair. I don't know. I would have preferred to at least see what it was like. I don't think it was going to be good. But
I think the best way to meet in the middle with regards to Batgirl is release it as a Disney Plus or HBO Max exclusive, and just release it that way. That way you don't suffer the embarrassment of a theatrical release going tits up, but you also can, have people see it.
Right. I think I'm just looking at it from like the behind the scenes thing of like a lot of people worked on it, and they kind of get screwed for their efforts, regardless of whether or not their efforts were good or not.
Yeah, I look at it. I look at it more as their careers probably dodging a bullet. But
again,
even though I don't think there would have been much merit to Batgirl, the sensible like middle of the road position would be don't release it in theaters, release it on HBO Max. That way people can see it and judge it and probably, BTFO it to hell, but at least they can see it, and you can recoup at least some losses from making the thing without risking a utter disastrous theatrical release. The one that should be in theaters, though, was Coyote vs. Acme, you cunts, but beating that drum, as always. Moving on.
Alright. DC Studios co-CEO Peter Safran was reportedly a top contender to take over from Luca and Abdi, though that would currently leave James Gunn to run the studio alone. The Insider has shared an update today, theorizing that Zaslav might be eyeing Safran because he wants out of DCU. It makes zero sense to me, Jeff Snyder stated.
Well, I have questions to how good James Gunn would be as a solo act, being essentially the Kevin Feige of DC. I do think that left to his own devices, we'd get a lot more obscure and cool comic booky shit from DC. And so, selfishly, for my own reasons, I want to see that just for the sake of James Gunn and I seem to be of similar mind with regards to what makes comic book content cool. So even though he probably wouldn't be a very good Kevin Feige by himself, I would want James Gunn as a solo act just to potentially get more comic booky shit. Because I'm sick of it. Yeah, sorry. I'm sick of the fucking trying to have it both ways thing. Just go for it with gusto and hope for the best.
All right.
Moving on.
It makes zero sense to me. Jeff Snyder started, unless his DC Studios co-chief James Gunn has become such a control freak that Safran feels like there isn't much there for him to do over there. That could explain why he'd take another position within the studio, which would allow him to work on a greater range of projects outside of comic book movies and TV shows.
Sorry, go ahead.
That said, I'm told that the number 3 at DC Studios, Chantal Nong, isn't quite ready to replace Safran in the capacity of co-CEO, nor is she necessarily the right fit alongside Gunn. So while the WB slate may fare better under Safran, DC Studios may ultimately suffer in the long run without him taking on the brunt of business responsibilities for the studio, he concluded.
Here's the thing. Because of how often Warner Brothers is their own worst enemy, they're basically up shit creek without a paddle. They've basically set a pile of money on fire, a la the Joker from The Dark Knight, and they've done it over and over and over again. So one way or the other, I don't think Warner Brothers as an independent studio is long for this world. That's why I wonder if it would almost be worth sacrificing this particular incarnation of Superman so that in another 10 years or so, or ideally like 13, again, take my knowledge, DC, I beg you, use it. I'm fucking sitting here like Palpatine talking to Anakin. But yeah, I think it'd almost be worth sacrificing this particular incarnation of Superman and letting DC as an IP form sit for 10 to 13 years and then having another go at it once Universal takes over at this point. Because at least that way, Warner Brothers has less capacity to shoot themselves in the foot, which they do like clockwork at every interval most of the time. Moving on.
All right. Until now, the belief has been that Gunn handles the creative, with Safran, a veteran Hollywood producer, managing DC Studios' business operations. It seems highly unlikely that Gunn has the time or inclination to become DC Studios' Kevin Feige, especially as that would leave him little to no room to write or direct any new DCU projects. Still, whether Gunn is paired with the inexperienced Nong or another executive, it's bound to have major consequences for this burgeoning franchise.
I mean, he already is essentially the Kevin Feige here. I'm not really sure on a practical note what Peter Safran actually does or did. And again, while I agree with you that putting him in a managerial position isn't a good fit for him, because James Gunn is at his best when he can be as outside of the box as he possibly can be. So I do share your reservations as to how well he can fit the Kevin Feige managerial mold. That being said, in the 5 years it would probably last, we'd at least get some really good creative takes on comic book shit. So selfishly, I kind of want to take James Gunn off his leash and tell him to go nuts for 5 years until Universal can finalize their buying of Warner Brothers. And then wait for 10 to 15 years, or 10 to 13 years, and set your next attempt at a Superman movie in 2038. And do Golden Age period pieces until those actors and or directors age out, and then move to the Silver Age, and on we can go. Please, I'm begging you, use my knowledge. It's there for the taking. Lol. Moving on.
First big test will be Superman. All signs currently point to the movie being a hit. Fan response has been positive, but should it underperform, Zaslav may sour on the DC brand and decide that's also not worth sinking any further money into. Didn't shy away from scrapping Batgirl after all. With any luck, the DCU is here to stay. The superhero genre as a whole would benefit from its success, but for now, we'll just have to wait and see how things shake out.
It really depends on what they define a success to be. If they're gonna insist on Superman making $1 billion, there is absolutely no chance of that in hell. If they would be okay with 700 million or so, I think that's at least doable. And like I say, the most realistic worst case scenario would be it making about the same amount of money as Man of Steel did back in the day in 2013. I think those are the three options. Either it somehow comes out and makes $1 billion, which it's not going to do under any circumstance, or you're going to have to settle for a $700 million success, or it's going to wind up splitting the audience, much like Man of Steel did back in the day, and all of the people who are pro Henry Cavill are going to skip the movie, and it's going to wind up in the same kind of middling position as Man of Steel did back in 2013, which would be around 500 million or so. But yeah, it really does depend on what you define as a success. If you mean it makes a moderate success as a blockbuster, which would be around 700 million, that's at least doable. If you mean it has to make $1 billion before you're willing to finance the rest of the DCU, that is not happening under all but the most miraculous of circumstances. And if you aren't okay with it potentially splitting the audience just like Man of Steel did, but in the other direction, which would net it about 500 million, then I would brace for impact, because that's a not unlikely set of circumstances at this point, given how thoroughly Henry Cavill was shafted from beginning to end there. Moving on.
Yeah, okay. Let me just get up the trailer. Alright, give me 1 sec. Yeah, so the last article we'll wait until next week then.
Yep. Which I think will work, because that's when the movie's actually coming out too, so that works.
We're not reviewing it because I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna make you do that. I'm going to do it because Eglantine and I are probably gonna cover it, but I'm not gonna make you do it. Yeah, the mirror is very clearly high if it thinks that Rachel Zegler is more attractive than Gal Gadot in any universe. Moving along, though.
Alright. Because Dalton loves to torture people, he's making us watch the official trailer for the live-action Lilo and Stitch trailer, which is coming out May 23rd, and this trailer came out 3 days ago, which is odd to me.
In my defense, I'm actually kind of on the positive side of this movie. Like, there are certain things about it that make me kind of nervous a little bit, but generally speaking, I am cautiously optimistic about this movie. It does not look terrible. Unlike the aforementioned abomination that we'll have to deal with next week, which just looks bad from Cradle to Grave. But pineapple, because Hawaii.
Yeah, sorry. Let me get the. Alright. Be honest, I didn't even know. I'll be honest. I wasn't even aware this movie was being made.
Oh, I will point out that this is another case of I sometimes have to bring things to Brainstormer's attention because otherwise he will not know. But pineapple.
We have apprehended a dangerous experiment. Where is he?
He escaped.
He's trying to find the police cruisers.
He took the red one.
What hideous planet is caught in your crosshairs?
I don't know. It's just like, I think I'm gonna reserve judgment for the moment. Feels like it's only the first 20 seconds.
Yeah, it's unusual when I'm the relatively speaking more positive one, but okay. Pineapple.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. The live action stuff looks kind of bland in my opinion. Like Disney Channel, not even like good Disney Channel original movies. It's very flat, very lack of depth.
Points, but as far as the live action ones go, I think this one is on the more positive side, like more closer to something like Cruella than something like the aforementioned Abomination that we'll talk about next week, because the mirror apparently got high.
I never watched Cruella.
It's probably ironically the only like live action remake that's better than Cruella, in my opinion, is the 90s Glenn Close 101 Dalmatians. So ironically, 101 Dalmatians seems to have the highest batting average for live action remakes. Lol. But pineapple.
Shooting star! I wish for a friend. Like a best friend.
What the hell?
See that shot with the green in the background is one of the things that makes me optimistic, because usually the problem with these live action remakes is they forget to keep the color and stylization of the animation, and that green shot is very obviously supposed to be reminiscent of the other glowing extraterrestrial green shot from the animated one. So they're not making the stupid, because it's realistic, we have to remove all the color and make it as bland as possible mistake, which is good.
Again, maybe it's just the saturation that's kind of bothering me. Like, I feel like it could be a lot more colorful.
It could, but grading on the curve that I grade the live action remakes on, this is one of the ones that remembered to keep most of the color intact.
Again, look, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, I'm being a little nitpicky here. It doesn't look too bad, but again, it's just on general principle. I just don't see the point.
Let me guess. You have really, really fond memories of the Lilo and Stitch movie.
I remember watching the fucking series too. So, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, because you're closer in age to my younger brother, and my younger brother's favorite Disney movie as a kid was Lilo and Stitch. Because when my little brother was younger, he was an absolute fucking nightmare. So we regularly called him Stitch. We also made jokes around Christmas time that he was a lot like Kevin McAllister, because he was. So that probably tells you more than you need to know about my brother. That the two characters that strongest resemble him, or did when he was a kid, were Kevin McAllister and Stitch from Lilo and Stitch.
All right.
But Pineapple.
He's so cute and fluffy.
He is your responsibility. Got it.
We promise.
Yeah.
Down from there.
Look like an angel.
No. Control him. Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, again, it's just it's the minor thing for me, but it's the color. Like the sky feels oddly desaturated and barren for some reason.
I can see it. That's. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying there's enough in it that I'm willing to be cautiously optimistic. Unlike
I
the
see
Snow White thing.
Like, I see your point. I'm just saying, like, with Lilo, like the original Lilo and Stitch, right? It was very colorful, very bright, and just fantastic. Which, I mean, it's set in Hawaii.
Yeah. My biggest question is, how is this movie gonna handle the heart? Because anyone who's ever watched Lilo and Stitch knows that movie lives and dies on the sheer strength of its heart. The relationship between Nani and Lilo, the relationship between Nani, Lilo, and Stitch, the relationship between Cobra Bubbles and the family, even to some extent, the relationship between Stitch, the family, Cobra Bubbles, and the head council person, Alien.
Yeah, it's like, God, that movie. Here's the reason why I remember it so much, because it actually might have been one of the first movies to actually like get me emotional.
Yeah, like I say, you're closer in age to my brother than you are to me, so that doesn't surprise me, because that was his favorite movie as a kid. Disney.
To be fair, my favorite Disney movie is Hunchback of Notre Dame. I've told you this.
I guess that.
I told you this like a while ago.
If you mentioned it, I have since forgotten. My bad.
Yeah, I think it was like a couple years back. So,
yeah, probably when we were just starting the show. So that might be my bad for forgetting. But even so, I also have fond memories of Lilo and Stitch, because I also remember watching the sequel and the TV show.
Wait, there was a sequel?
Yeah, the sequel that set up the TV show. The one that introduced Professor Hamsterville.
Fuck!
And the other experiments.
God damn! I just watched the fucking show, the first movie in the show. I never knew there was a second one.
I will have to see if I can find it for you. I'm sure it's posted online somewhere.
I have Disney Plus. I can try and find it there. Probably is there.
Yeah, but
how the fuck did I never know this?
Because you were, to the best of my recollection, an only child, and no one older than you was there to show you the cool shit.
You're somewhat right. Okay, shall we?
But before we move on from the topic of the sequel, while we're on this topic, it is a fucking crime that the only one of the other experiments that has made it into plushie form vis-a-vis the Disney parks is Angel, aka Experiment 64. There are so many awesome designs for the experiments, and they all deserve to be plushies. God damn it, all of them. Give me all the 668 of them. In fact, because of course, 67 is Leroy, and Jumba we never see the design for 628, but there's one of the dehydrated capsule things that's marked with 628 at one point in I think it's at the end of Leroy and Stitch. So point being, there are 663 other fucking experiment designs that all deserve plushie status, and they don't have it. And I find this to be bullshit. But pineapple.
It does seem like they're sticking with Stitch's chaoticness in the early part of the movie.
Yeah, the person voicing him is the same person who voiced him in the original, so that certainly helps.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, dogs on the table.
You sure that's a dog?
Yeah.
Rough.
Ew! We are not keeping this thing.
Ohana
I do love the return of the Elvis music, because for I think most of my generation and the generation underneath me, Lilo and Stitch is the introduction to Elvis Presley for an entire ass generation of people.
I think I just knew him through through osmosis because of my family. So I live with my grandparents and stuff.
I suppose that's possible too. I think I also already knew who he was, because I remember my grandma Cindy, my mother's mother, was a fan of his at one point. But that being said, the thing that gave me, I guess, added context to Elvis was either this, i.e. Lilo and Stitch, or it was the occasional mention that Elvis got in the TV special "Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer," which was my great grandma's favorite Christmas movie.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
Nostalgia, but pineapple nostalgia.
Family. Family means nobody gets left behind.
Or forgotten.
Stitch that.
Sometimes family isn't perfect. That doesn't mean they aren't good. That was close. I don't think you're supposed to drink that.
Okay, I'm gonna be as nice as I possibly can here, but the girl playing Lilo has a almost terminal case of child actor syndrome, i.e., she really doesn't pull off seeming organic very well. The woman playing Nanny appears to be fine, but the girl playing Lilo, I can already tell she has a almost terminal case of child actor syndrome.
It's probably her first role, to be fair.
It likely is, but Lilo and Stitch lives and dies on the relationship between Lilo and Stitch, and thus, if you can't nail both of those, you're in maybe not problematic territory, or maybe not risky territory. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, for me, the parts that I remember the most fondly from Lilo and Stitch are the Jumba and Pleakley segments. So there's that, but it is somewhat hard to make a Lilo and Stitch movie where half the title is dying of child actor syndrome. But pineapple.
Agent Cobra Bubbles, we have a blue dog to catch.
No, wait.
Okay, this is the other aspect of this movie that gives me at least a little bit of pause here.
They're wearing holographic human disguises instead of like the cheap design disguises that We're actually
Well, no, not that. The thing that I want to draw attention to is Cobra Bubbles, because they
He's not
did
that
a
big.
well, no, but let me explain. The thing that worries me here is they did an amazing job making him a social worker first and a implied secret agent second, but they seem to be, per that line of dialogue, flipping it, and I think that's a mistake.
Yeah. No, I can
the-
totally see that.
The strongest thing about Cobra Bubbles was everyone and their dog literally could see that he was probably some kind of secret agent or whatever the fuck. But he also spends most of the movie serving the actual function of the social worker. And so it becomes more of a surprise and a payoff rather than a main feature when he comes in and saves Lilo and Stitch's ass at the end when the councilwoman needs convincing. So taking away the subtlety of him being a agent of Child Protective Services first and an implied secret agent second worries me significantly here.
Yeah, I can see how that's a big issue. Actually.
Because otherwise he's just Jay from Men in Black, and that's fine, but not what's needed here.
All right. Pineapple.
Pineapple.
No, I'm gonna hit you to the count of 3, Stitch. 1.
This movie is certainly going to sell a lot of Stitch plushies again. Like that is one thing that has not changed with time. There's going to be so many Stitch plushies. And again, not to harp on this point again, but there are 663 because they do use Angel sometimes. Other experiments for them to use, and they should. Give me all of the experiment plushies, goddammit. And now on to another mostly positive thing, I think.
I'd argue that Lilo and Stitch are,
Like I said, I come down as cautiously optimistic on the Lilo and Stitch thing, but we shall see.
And I'm just not. Most of the live action movies have been
Varying
my expectations
degrees
are
of mad to
you know?
shit is the thing there.
Yeah, so my expectations are very low on this, you know. So
yeah, I choose to be cautiously optimistic because I only spotted 2 things that are somewhat worrying, and that's a lot less than most of the live action remakes have had. So I'm crossing my fingers here.
the series on Netflix, the same guys who worked on Castlevania and I believe Warren Ellis, right?
Yes. Also, speaking of Castlevania, the Devil May Cry series is in the same multiverse as Castlevania.
That's why I said it was made by the same.
You're roboting again.
Okay, I can't do anything. You want? Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. So what I was saying was, it's made by the Castlevania Nocturne, Castlevania series, like the original one.
Mhm.
The guy also did the Dread movie with Carl Urban in 2012.
Yeah.
And he's been trying to make this for a while. So Cry games, my into its lore. I've looked at theory.
Mm. I'm curious how closely they're going to tie them together. Like, will it just be a nod to the Infinite Corridor from season 3 of Castlevania, or do you think there'll be more parallels than that?
I'm going to look at it as its own, because it's mostly one. This is the first season of a new series, so it's the other series.
Mm-hmm.
But not or one, not or two. But there wasn't anything in the trailer when I go.
I'm just curious because for me, I've never had much exposure to the Devil May Cry games. So for me, the idea that they're using the Infinite Corridor from Castlevania to make it be in the same universe and possibly even the same version of Hell in Castlevania, is the thing that intrigues me about it.
So not judging it on its own merit, then.
Well, no, because I don't have any connection to Devil May Cry as a franchise. Hopefully, it's good enough to make me want to get into Devil May Cry as a franchise. But for me, the thing that made me excited for this particular show is the creative team said, and I think they even show it in several scenes with regards to Castlevania Season 3 and the Infinite Corridor, that this may very well be the exact same version of Hell that the Priory creature was going to suck Lisa and Drac out of in Castlevania Season 3. So I'll be interested to see how many nods to it there are. There. You
Pizza.
know Devil May Cry better than I do. What food
Pizza.
stuff are we going?
Dante.
Really?
Yeah, the main character Dante. So like there are whole scenes, like action scenes that start with him trying to get a slice of pizza, but he gets interrupted by demons. It's a whole thing.
Well, okay, that's
okay. Just to put in reference to the character of Dante, someone had once described him as a Bugs Bunny in a world full of Daffy Ducks.
Okay, that's an interesting mental image.
Basically, he's a jokester. Yeah, he's very much a jokester. Plays around all the time. Can get serious, but oftentimes he just likes messing and tricking his opponent.
I see. I thought he was a reference to the historical figure. I guess that's my bad. So, okay, question then. When is Devil May Cry actually set? Like, year-wise? Or don't we ever find out when it's supposed to be set?
It's modern day.
Okay, that's gonna be a little of a hard sell, but okay. Pizza.
Why?
It's just based on the aesthetics of the game and like the
What games have you
par-
seen? I'm genuinely
parts of-
curious.
the parts of it that got referenced in Castlevania, I assumed it was going to be set, if not contemporaneously, at least close to the same years that Trevor and Sypha were in. That's
Okay,
why.
dude, you really don't know Devil May Cry.
That's why my original assumption was this was explicitly a reference to Dante Alighieri, the famous guy who mapped out heaven, purgatory, and hell in the Divine Comedy. But
No, I mean, the name is, I'm sure, two certain names, I'm sure, from that are references to that, and some elements from that, I believe, are taken, but basically they kind of tell their own story. The overall message is, you know what, honestly, I don't even think you're going to like this now. I'll explain that.
I'll give it a chance.
We both know you're not. Let's be fully honest on that.
No, I'm gonna give it a chance because again, at the very least, there's the connection to the Infinite Corridor and stuff. So
See, the fact that that's the only thing that's intriguing you is what is making me not believe you're gonna like this.
well, I will try. We'll see how successful I am. Pizza.
I will say this: it is a great exploration about the idea of what qualifies a human, what defines a demon, and how two are similar and different, and what is the description of a human? What is it mean to have a heart or a soul? Those are major messages or ideas that have been conveyed throughout the Devil May Cry series.
Well, we'll see whether modern day writing fucks them over, I guess. Pizza.
Yeah, you are. I don't know how you can either be. It's like two extremes with you. Either you're you're cautiously optimistic about something, or just down dipper cynical about something.
Well, because that's in my experience the two molds things can take. Either I'm proven wrong about my negative projections or proven right about my positive ones, or I try my damnedest to give something the benefit of the doubt and it slaps me in the fucking face because modern day writers are hacks and cunts. But we will see whether the die falls on a natural 20 or a crit roll. That's the problem with the way my luck works. It's either I somehow roll a natural 20 or I crit on like a 7 or something. D&D metaphor.
So I'm gonna be fully honest with you. While it's a lot more high octane action than Castlevania, it's not. See, the sigh there again. It's based on an action game, dude.
Well, but so is Castlevania technically, and they do action scenes well in that. So hopefully there's still enough to recommend this, but we will see when we get there. Pizza.
Honestly, a part of me just doesn't want to show you because now I just think you're not gonna like it out of spite. Everything I've described of it.
I don't refuse to like things out of spite. I get spiteful back when things try to spite me. So that is the question. How much is the modern day isms, both in terms of setting and in terms of modern day writing, going to
modern day as in this? It's set in an urban city, dude. That's what I meant by modern day. That is always when it's been set. Granted, I mean it's never really given a proper.
well, but it's also Netflix and yeah. Go ahead.
The games themselves, while I'm not gonna lie, they have like it's almost like a Vampire the Masquerade kind of style to it, like gothic punk aesthetics to it. See, again, it's the sign that is making me think you're not liking this.
That either can go really, really well, like something like The Craft, or it can go really, really badly, like something like the Underworld movies. So
Okay, the first one wasn't bad. Okay.
it's fine, I guess, if I'm being overly charitable.
Okay, go fuck yourself. I say that as your friend.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see whether the universe is seeking to fuck me over, or whether I'll actually find a new franchise to get into. These are the questions, Pizza.
This, gentlemen, is your primary objective. He's a top-level threat. Engage him with the full brunt of your firepower.
I work better with music.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort.
Here we stand.
I'm not gonna lie, this actually is like very much. The games themselves are very like early 2000s style.
Which again is either a very, very good thing or a very, very bad thing, depending. So we shall see, Pizza.
I don't think you're gonna like this because you are an uppity, uptight, aristocratic motherfucker.
If you honestly want my opinion over the last 2 seconds of what I've seen,
20.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of Hellsing. Like Hellsing Ultimate Abridged.
Is that good or?
It depends on what happens next. I will say I think the song choice is a little bit try hard, but maybe they'll make it work.
I think if you knew the franchise, the song kind of would have made sense. Because it has a very much like rock, punk rock kind of soundtrack that it's done.
Again, the problem is that can either go really, really well or it can go really, really badly, depending. So we shall see. Pizza.
Okay, maybe I should stop trying to introduce you to stuff. Because clearly, most of the time, you don't like it.
I mean, in fairness, I usually try to get you into stuff that you end up not liking too, so that's fine.
Wait, don't know.
You haven't even begun to tap any of the franchises I've recommended to you, so
well, to be fair,
maybe we both should just stop, I guess, because it tends to.
Okay, no, I have the Dresden Files stuff saved. I just haven't had the time because I've been busy. I fully intend to do that. I've just.
Do you?
I really do.
Or are we going to be sitting here in another 5 years with me still gleefully recommending it and you basically being despondent because I oversold it?
I don't think you've been doing it for the last 5 years. I think you've been doing it the last maybe 2-3 years, which granted is still pretty long, but
you get my point.
I do.
And realistically, I don't even necessarily blame you. I just need to stop being. I just need to stop recommending you things.
To be fair, it is a pretty long list, and I am trying to get through it. It's a long ass list, man. In theory,
I guess I should be madder about the stuff that actually pertains to universes that we're making, like the research stuff and the actual homework. I guess should make me more upset than the stuff I've recommended you out of fun. But
no, it's man, again, it's to be fair, you send me a lot of stuff, and it's just
I do because I know how your brain works, and I know your capacity to make references to shit and stuff. So
I know it's just
my approach is I know his brain will do things with this if I give it to him, so I'm gonna give it to him, and we'll see
I mean,
what what comes out of the randomization engine afterward.
like I have all the research stuff like in list and saved places. I just haven't had the time to like look through all of it. Again, man, it's just a lot of stuff, and my brain, as often as
I know, but that's why I'm blaming myself. Maybe I should just stop recommending you stuff.
I would say,
At
like just for a minute.
At least until you make some major headway into. In theory, I should be harping on more the actual research material, but at the same time, I'd like to be able to share franchises with you that I think you'd like. So
No, it's like
on some level, I'm more upset about that even than I necessarily should be, but who knows?
Like honest, man, the stuff like the Dresden Files, the way you've talked about it, the way I want to get into it, but again, I've been busy. My mind has honestly been in so many other places. Like, it's not excuses. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just saying how it's been. And
yeah, I know, but realistically, that's probably not going to change in the next 5 years or so. So I should just stop trying to recommend you things, at least until your brain is in whatever headspace it needs to be in to actually process shit. Anyway, point being, I am trying to give this a chance. I don't really know what to make of it, other than, like I say, it does resemble Hellsing Ultimate, or like from what I've seen of Hellsing Ultimate Abridged. And the song choice does strike me as a little bit try hard, but again, maybe they'll come back around and justify it. Who knows? But in any case, we need to move on. So, pizza.
Also, Johnny Young Bosch is voicing DMC. Dante. God, I'm tired. I'm going to ask if you know who that is.
The name is not familiar to me, but I suspect roles he's been in would be.
Johnny Young Bosch.
No.
Zach from Power Rangers.
Okay. See, there you go.
Vash from Trigun.
The only name of the Power Rangers cast that registers to me most of the time is the one that played Tommy. So that's why that didn't click.
Vash from Trigun. He's been in a lot of anime. Like his voice. Ichigo from Bleach.
I haven't watched Bleach yet.
Fucking course you haven't.
Okay, most of the animes I have seen are either stuff that I grew up with or that is directly connected to shit I grew up with, or stuff I used to watch with my ex-boyfriend.
No, but he has been in a lot of anime stuff, so I'm just like, there was no.
Did he do any voices for Magi?
I'm looking. Oh, he's Code Geass.
Was he Lelouch?
I believe so, actually.
Okay, so that's why his voice sounds vaguely familiar to me.
Yeah.
Because he does sound a lot like Lelouch here.
Yeah, he's been, like I said, man. If you've heard his voice, I'm sure you would know who he is.
Like I say, most of my anime knowledge is stuff that I grew up with, stuff that's connected to things I grew up with, or stuff that I watched with my ex-boyfriend.
He also voiced in Akira. It was Kaneda.
Ah.
Yeah, like I said, again, if you heard him or even seen him, I'm sure you would know.
Well, yeah. Now that you tell me he's the guy that voiced Lelouch, now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, pizza.
stand on the threshold of a new age. The age of the demon. My army is about to descend on this city, causing unimaginable death. Unless Dante comes to meet us first.
Me against an entire army. Sounds easy enough. Let's dance.
Okay, that line was good.
Yeah, oftentimes Dante is like super confident in himself
This
because oftentimes he does kick ass.
this reminds me of Sandman Slim, actually. I think I recommended that book to you.
I don't think you did, actually.
Okay, well then, when we're done here, I will get you that link. But yeah, this guy vaguely reminds me of the character's actual name is Jimmy Stark. He was a Earth mage who got banished to Hell because his former coven fucked him over, and became Hell's bounty hunter. He's also unbeknownst to him for most of the first book, a Nephilim.
Fantasy Supernatural Cult Noir series.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I looked it up. I was just curious. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think you ever sent me anything about this.
I will send it as soon as we're finished here. But yeah, he vaguely reminds me of Jimmy Stark. Actually, which okay. Anyhow, pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah, damn, he's cool.
Still think this would be better with like a more like classical music vibe rather than the Hot Topic track here. But
That's no, Devil May Cry has basically had this kind of music always in its ingrained in its kind of
right.
style.
But keep in mind, this is my first taste of it as a franchise, and personally, for me, I think it could benefit from toning down the edgelord just the tiniest bit.
Well, it's fine to be wrong.
Because this is the thing, like
Don, it's not your, well, one thing I think we also have to take into account: this isn't your taste of music, so you're obviously biased.
well, no, but there are franchises for which it could work. I'm just saying that it doesn't. The tone set by the music doesn't match the visuals. Is the thing. I think that's why my brain is going. This needs kind of an instrumental vibe to it to make more sense.
I disagree, but okay.
Anyway, pizza.
Maybe it's just because I know this franchise, so this music feels appropriate to me.
And again, this is my first taste of Devil May Cry, and being as it's my first taste of Devil May Cry, even acknowledging that Dante is very, very similar to Jimmy Stark, and therefore the edgy noir territory does work. The stereotypical Hot Topic or Spencer's Gift music could even within that kind of subgenre, I think it would work with a different song.
To be fair, when I was watching the trailer myself, it wouldn't be my first pick. I will agree with you there.
I also think it might be a problem with the sound mixing because the song just seems a little bit too loud.
On the fence about that. I'll be fully honest. But fun fact.
Actually, I know exactly what song would still fit with the 90s Hot Topic aesthetic, but would work better. Dark Secret. I don't remember the
band
artist that does Dark Secret, but it's a song that was used in The Craft, like right as they were getting into heavy summoning shit. Is a really good song, and I think it would work really well here. But it's still in the like 90s goth aesthetic vibe still.
By Matthew Sweet.
I think so.
Hold on, I'm looking at the lyrics. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You are sickened by the weakness of a heart that's filled with fear.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. I don't think this fits. This doesn't fit Devil May Cry, to be fair. Like the lyrics with Dante. Because big part of the story and spoilers, I guess. So he's half demon.
Right. I assume they were either going to play the half demon card or the Nephilim card, because I mean.
Well, there's actually it's funny you mention that, because in the reboot they had them called Nephilim, even though that was half angel, half human.
Right. That's what a Nephilim is.
No, Nephilim's half angel, half human.
Yeah.
Half angel, half demon in the reboot. That's what I said.
Oh, yeah. You said half angel, half human both times.
No, I said half angel, half demon the first time.
You misspoke, dude. You can fucking track the stream back. I promise you misspoke. That may not have been what you meant, but it is what you said.
I'm fairly certain I said half demon and half angel.
DT, back me up here. What did he say the first time? Assuming DT's still here.
I think he's still here. Just probably away from the keyboard right now.
Okay, when he gets back, he can verify it for us.
So yeah, backstory on Dante, because I feel like I was trying not to like spoil, or not spoil it, but in case you wanted to look up stuff later, right? So you learn on your own. But the backstory of Dante is that he is the son of a legendary demon called Sparta, who ages ago turned against his own kind, like demons, right?
Okay.
Fought them off, sealed the entrance to hell, trapping many demons in the human world and keeping basically all the rest at bay.
Right, okay.
For centuries, he stayed on Earth and stuff. There was even a religion founded in his name at one point. Eventually met a human woman named, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was either Eve or Eva.
Okay.
Fell in love with her and had two sons, twins, Dante and Virgil.
Okay, so they're definitely doing a Divine Comedy reference, because Virgil is the ancient Roman writer who leads Dante through hell, purgatory, and heaven.
Yeah, it's that's why I said earlier, at least taking reference of it.
Okay.
Sparta dies. Seemingly, I'm uncertain. He's not murdered, because no demons attacked him or his family while he was still alive, because he was considered the strongest demon alive.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately after his death, demons came to kill his family. Because they are fucking pussies.
Well, because demons are cunts, but And hashtag not all, obviously, but demons are rather known to be cunts sometimes.
Yeah. But no, in like Devil May Cry like series, it does seem like the demons are just full on assholes.
I mean, that's a little bit disappointing.
Actually, no. I mean, considering Sparta, and there are like some other demons out there that seemingly are pretty chill. Either way, what was I saying? Yeah, they kill. Well, Dante
after they kill it, after they try to come and kill his family, what happens?
Dante escapes. While his brother Virgil has to see his mom get killed by the demons when he was hiding, because their mom was looking for Dante because he got separated during the attack. Dante lived on his own for a good couple years, basically becoming a demon hunter, using his enhanced strength and his powers as he got older, and just kind of learned the tricks of the trade of demon hunting. Became pretty accomplished at it. Got a business called Devil May Cry.
Okay, so because my brain cannot think of anything else but this at the moment, but roll credits, ding.
Yeah. Well, as for but with his brother Virgil, basically they have the inversion of, well, Dante kind of embraced his humanity, which has given him more strength than ever. The care, and all that.
And Virgil embraced the demon half, I'm assuming, because Dark Parallel.
Sort of. Just claimed more power, because if he had more power in his head, if he had more power when he was a kid, he could have protected his mother. It's all stemmed from very human emotions and tragedy and all that stuff. And basically, Virgil sees humanity as not even just the concept, just humanity in general, right? As weak, and thus seeks more power through demons and through gain more powers from the demon realm and all that stuff.
I mean, he's not wrong, so fair enough.
Yeah. Although in the Devil May Cry series, it's often shown that when not the concept of humanity, at the very least, love, compassion, kindness, even just emotions overall. When you embrace those, you find a strength from within. But when you have nothing like that, then you can be considered devil. So, you've had antagonists that have been pure humans, but have no good or any sympathy.
No humanity TM.
Yeah. And thus transform themselves into monsters, or in the pursuit of power, turn themselves into demons themselves.
In short, humans are better at being demons when we are well and truly when we've well and truly gone bad than most demons are. Which, again, is fair.
Yeah.
Because most demons wouldn't do half the self-destructive horse shit that we do to each other all the time.
Yeah, and again, Dante is an interesting character or protagonist, because as much as he is very the guy's got trauma, like anyone, like any protagonist has.
Yeah, I figured that as much as I figured that about the time you told me about him having to watch his mother die.
No, that was
my brain immediately went hero motive, ding.
No, that was his brother.
Ah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just again, the lore gets complicated because it has that similar thing with a lot of Japanese games where they add to it and somewhat retcon stuff that deepens the lore but does muddy the timeline.
Yeah, it makes things complicated.
Yeah.
But in any case, pizza.
Pizza. God damn, it's almost 12.
I know better than to trust a demon. Death and destruction is the core of your nature.
I know all about demons' nature. I'm not one of them. Ripped and irresistible dreamboat, I know. You still can't just tear a guy's clothes off.
I forgot to mention, the guy is very much flirt.
Well, okay. Now you have my attention. Sorry.
I mean, it does seem like he's pretty straight. So, you probably
fuck bunnies. All the good guys are straight or taken. Grr.
Sorry, bud. I mean, to be fair, he does kind of seem your type, you know, dumb and brutish.
That's why he needs me.
Still straight, though.
That's why that's one of the reasons I like dumb himbos, because if they're dumb, that means they need me. And if they're idealistic, then that means they need a world-weary bastard who can see into the heart of evil. So, there again.
Right.
Dumb idealistic himbos are definitely my thing.
Yeah. I am curious what they're going to do with, Lady. The character's name here is, because she's got an interesting backstory in connection with Dante. Not that they're lovers, they're just close friends. It's very complicated, but doesn't exactly seem like they're going with her full. Well, it's what I'm seeing. Doesn't look like they're going with their full backstory here yet. So, makes you curious.
Based on this, I do think you will enjoy Sandman Slim pretty well.
Put it on the list.
I feel like Jimmy Stark and Dante would wind up in the same bar sooner or later. Also, in case it makes any difference to you, Sandman Slim is set in Hollywood.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw one of the covers for one of the books. Yeah. Not the place I would put it, but okay.
Yeah. Sandman Slim is set in Vegas. Dresden is set in Chicago. Daniel Faust is set in Vegas. Alex Virus is set in London. The Night Watch books are set in Russia. I'm trying to. Nightside is set in London again, but a different part of London. I'm trying to think of the other. Iron Druid is set in Tempe, Arizona.
I feel like you gotta send me this list of stuff.
I could have sworn I already have, but I will send them again for the sake of thoroughness.
I know you and I talked about Night Watch because I made mention that I knew about it because I'd seen some videos talking about it.
Yeah.
That wasn't too long ago. I don't think you ever mentioned Iron Druid to me. I know you've obviously Dresden, and we just talked about Sandman Slim. You made mention once of Daniel
Faust.
Daniel Faust, thank you. Like once. But I don't think you ever sent me anything about that.
I don't think I've ever mentioned Alex Virus to you because I just got into that series.
Yeah.
So, I don't think I'd mentioned that one yet. But
no, I'm just now hearing about that one.
I will send you things.
And it will be added to the list, and I will do my absolute best at some point in the future to get to it.
Daniel Faust is probably going to be the one for completeness' sake you're going to want to get into, because like all but 2 of the Daniel Faust books are on YouTube for free. The 2 that are missing are the second book for some reason, although the second short story is on YouTube for some reason, and the most recent of the Daniel Faust books is still missing.
All right. Yeah, just put it on the list for all the things you need to cover.
Yeah, but in any case, pizza, so we can continue this.
I was also thinking of regarding the song "Out of Control" by Set It Off. If you ever heard that song, might actually be better for this one.
Have I know I've heard the title. I just don't know if I've heard the song.
It's a lot more faster paced. I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, because they have Limp Bizkit playing in the opening credits, they could have also done a Limp Bizkit song as well.
You can't really get more 90s than Limp Bizkit. It's one of those. This could have only happened in the 90s. People.
Yeah. So honestly, if you wanted to keep in theme, I think that actually would have been a better choice. Like stay within that single band, you know.
If it's an ongoing thing, then that would have made.
Yeah, they were using.
There are better songs they could have gone with that are still in that very much like 90s Hot Topic vibe.
Is Limp Bizkit really Hot Topic? I've listened to their stuff.
I have known many goths who really liked that band. So I don't know if it's just a sampling bias of all the goths I've spoken to, but most of the goths I've ever run into have fond memories of that particular artist.
All right. Okay.
In any case, though, we need to move on. So pizza.
This world's reckoning is already in motion. All you can do is ease its passing.
Dante.
I gotta be honest, you feeling
any?
Are you feeling any like modernisms so far?
Not yet, but Netflix is Netflix, so who knows?
Well, again, it's worked on by the same guys who did Castlevania, and I realize most of the writing for the early seasons were by Warren Ellis.
Warren Ellis, yeah. Their names are too fucking similar, and they're both involved in the British invasion. So,
that and also, they worked on superhero stuff. Well, with Warren Ellis, who did then like edgy superhero stuff, but with like Warren Ellis, it's a lot more thought provoking, and he's more focused on humanism, right?
Well, yeah, because he's. I'm not sure if he's a practitioner, but he certainly seems very enamored with like the like Renaissance era esoteric philosophy. One of the reasons why he's so good at magic vis-a-vis Castlevania, because he actually, for the most part, tries to play with like the like Neoplatonic and Hermetic philosophies that were contemporaneous to that time period. There was one scene where they went into almost postmodern territory when Scythe is saying magic is changing things in accordance with intent, which is bargain basement Wiccan bullshit nonsense. But that one scene being bullshit as it may, most of the relationship between the natural sciences, the occult sciences, and religion in Castlevania is very much a divide that was contemporaneous to the time period it's set in. I really wish we could have seen the version of Nocturne that had him still as the main writer, but alas, no.
I mean, from what I've heard, season 2 is actually a lot better.
Yeah, season two is a lot better because it focuses a lot more on kind of the connective tissue, and brings Alucard back in. But
also
the main just FU that was in season 1 was they were trying to frame the people who were revolting in the French Revolution as the good guys, along the lines of like an Antifa bullshit thing. So that's the main reason of what was, or that was the main vector of what was wrong with Nocturne season 1. But once they pulled back from that Antifa bullshit a little bit and stopped framing the revolutionaries of the French Revolution as the good guys, then it got better.
Alright. Jean?
Pizza.
Leaving so soon? We have much to catch up on, brother.
I could tell the second he started speaking that was going to be Virgil, just from the summary you gave me.
Yeah. April 3rd. It's not too far.
Yeah, Netflix always releases trailers like
a month in advance.
startlingly soon to when it's about to drop. Yeah.
It's always like a month or like at most like 2 months before or something.
Yeah, and I swear they've dropped trailers like 2 weeks before. So like, Netflix is really bad with trailer distribution.
I don't know. I think that's fine, but like it's not too far that the hype dies down, but it's also not too close that basically.
It feels too soon because we're used to like the Hollywood schedule of like a year before, 6 months before, and then 3 months before.
To be fair, no, they did like a few months back. They did do a teaser trailer, so.
Okay, so that.
Yeah.
So this is technically the second trailer or the first full trailer, depending on how you want to look at it. But in any case, it's after midnight or very nearly after midnight, so we should outro.
Yeah. So with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avidazai, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
shalom, and fuck off, and have a happy St. Patrick's Day as well, because 2 days.
Yeah, don't get too drunk, folks.
Mm-hmm.